I'm searching for some sunshine. Just need one ray through the dark skies. I gotta look for the bright side. I know we're gonna be alright. I know we're gonna be alright. Just make it through another day. As these dark clouds will go away. I'm holding on to my face. I know we're gonna be okay. Yeah, we're gonna be okay.
Well, happy Sunday, SMITE fans, and happy Easter out there to those who celebrate it. And you are watching Day 3 of Week 2 of the SMITE Pro League. My name is Dolson. Gormizer is here with me, and we're together all day on the desk to talk about the action that we'll be seeing here today. Gormizer, we've seen, I think, 2-0s from the start and all through the day yesterday. Yeah. This is a day I'm not... Gore, I don't know if I'm confident we're going to see a 2-1 yet here today with the matchups we've got.
Man, it's so difficult to call. I want to die on the sword of every day we have the potential to see one of them. That being said, there's only one match today I think that's going to give it to us. I think E-United Renegades could very easily be a 2-1. It just depends on which E-United that we have that shows up, right? The one that beat Rival or the one that lost to Radiance. Whichever one we get kind of determines the way this set's going to go.
That's true, and I think that's an interesting thing to look at, and we'll really dive in to E-United and the Renegades in that matchup here in a little bit, but kind of two sides of E-United that we've seen, and after that first win, they've since lost, which brings them to third place, tied for third with three other teams there at 1-1. Radiance playing Obey for our second matchup of the day and our final matchup of the week. That is a top versus bottom matchup here. Radiance looking to stay undefeated, Obey still searching for that first win, and it's a big one for the Renegades as well, Gore. They're searching for their first win. So I think this is a big day for both of these teams, but specifically looking at this first matchup, Renegades up against E United. I want to kind of piggyback on what you mentioned about E United. What team are we going to get? And we'll just have to wait and see, because we've seen arguably one of the stronger teams in the league immediately into we don't know where they stand.
Yeah, that's the biggest kind of question mark. I mean, they made a very solid debut statement by being able to 2-0 rival. But Radiance, and maybe it's Radiance that realistically is the reason E United lose, right? Maybe it's not anything they did. Maybe it's not anything that goes poorly for them. Maybe it is the fact that Radiance is just that good. And personally, I was kind of underestimating them. I wouldn't be surprised if that might be the case for some of these other teams. But when we saw them go up against Radiance, it didn't feel the same way as it did when they were up against Rival. And losing at that, even though they have a lot of high priority picks, even though the drafts were going their way. Granted, you can add some caveats in there, because one of those they grabbed a Zhang Kui, which isn't necessarily number one on the charts of go-to gods, but there's some things that are going on with them. They're willing to try stuff. I think they recognize that, Radiance, again, in that set, we're a really strong team. Figure out what you can do. This is a much more favorable matchup for E United. Like, on paper, if you're coming into this season with a blank slate, people are calling this 2-0, no doubt in their minds. It's just the fact that Renegades have looked good these last couple of sets as well that it maybe starts to shake things up.
And I agree with you absolutely, and I think you have to lean E United in this one just on paper. But whether it's just name hangover from last season, the community at large still leaning towards Renegades here in this matchup.
Yeah.
And I think they are a roster. And again, it's been the weirdest thing to kind of follow. They're 0-2, but somehow we still feel good about the Renegades after their 2 losses. Like, they're losses that don't necessarily look bad. So somehow we still feel good about a team that's 0-2.
It's the way they've lost that makes the big difference, right? Like, if you're going to lose 2-0, there's, I guess, maybe 3 ways to do it, right? There's a neutral game. The other team just kind of takes it. Very similar to what we saw, I would argue, like Sanguine versus Obey in week 1, where it was kind of very close, and then all of a sudden Sanguine take it. Then there's what we saw between Knights and Obey yesterday, where, 5 minutes in, realistically, you think, man, this game might just be over because they have such a lead on the side of the Knights, and well, lo and behold, they were able to close both out, no problem. But Renegades have gotten the third type, which is, man, we're 30 minutes in, and it still feels like it could go either way. Unfortunately for them, and this is where some of the doubt is going to get cast in, when they played against Rival on Friday, they were in control of Game 1, and one bad call was all it took to take that game from winnable to them to a complete loss. And then into Game 2, things just didn't hold up. I'm wondering if we're going to get that Renegades, or if maybe they kind of looked at the footage, recognized what went wrong, and are going to maybe rethink their ways of sieging the base, because that's where things started to fall apart for them. Objectives have been interesting because they've stolen Gold Furies but never really been in control of Gold Furies. Like, it's these small moments. I want to see their team play around objectives get just a little bit smoother for them as a team. Then I think we see them escalate into finding a lot of wins, potentially getting some sets, not just maps. But right now, I think we're looking at how well can they keep Obey at bay until, well, eventually somebody ends up taking control.
That's right. I look at Lasbra in this lineup as well for the Renegades to have a big day. He's been kind of a driving force through some of that momentum that the Renegades have had in their set. One of the main pieces in this team, though, I think, is Venenu in that mid lane, and I had the opportunity to sit down with him and talk to him and see how the team has been feeling after a rough couple of games prior to this big matchup. Venenu, mid laner for the Renegades. And Ven, let's take a jump back, look at the first couple games you guys have had so far this split, and I think a lot of people, despite losses, are actually feeling confident in you guys kind of in a weird backwards way. I would argue that 3 out of the 4 games you guys have played, you've been right in there up until the end. What is kind of the team's assessment on how the first couple of games have gone for you guys?
We're pretty happy with how the games went. I mean, it's kind of unlucky that we ended up losing, but I don't know, we're making our own mistakes, so we just got to work on that. I mean, we're having a good time, like, watching the games back. We're watching it as a whole team of 6, and we're just, like, laughing at our own mistakes and everything like that. Like, it's just early mistakes that we're making, and it's like, it shouldn't be mistakes that we're making, but we're happy with what we're doing anyway. And I mean, it sucks that we're losing, but we're confident going forward. So,
that's good. that's important right off the bat to have just kind of good, happy vibes, especially when it's been tough going up to this point. And I kind of want to look at a couple specific players. I think Lasbra and Awesome Jake have been two interesting players to kind of follow with you guys. Obviously, with Lasbra, a huge impact for you guys in the jungle. What do you think it's been that has found him some good success early on here?
I don't know. We talked to him like beforehand, just about like what his goals were and like why he thinks, like before we even picked him up, of like why he wasn't like doing too good or anything like that, or like from the outsider's perspective. And I mean, he admitted that it wasn't too good, but he was just looking for like a confident team in him and like to like put it in the work to help him get better and like everybody just be like a unit together, since he hasn't had that before. And we're giving that to Jake and him. Like, we're confident in both of them. It's going to take a lot of work, but we're confident in both of them for sure.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's the environment that can help build those players. And quick thoughts on Jake. What has it been like playing with him throughout the first couple of games? I mean, he came in and everyone was assuming we'd see this kind of aggressive support play style, and I think we've seen that a good few times in your previous few games. Are you guys happy with what you've seen out of the SPL newcomer so far?
Yeah, Jake he's a really good player, but I mean, he's an idiot a lot of times. But we love him, and it's worth definitely picking him up and putting the effort into him. He has a lot of potential that has been not shown yet. But once we get to the point that I think that we can get to, I think we're going to be a really strong team, and he's going to be a big part of it. We're confident in him for sure.
I agree, and it seems like if nothing else, you guys have forged a really good family bond here moving forward, and I think that's a great foundation to have moving later on in the split. And we'll touch quickly on your matchup here today, going up against E United. I think people are having a hard time figuring out exactly where E United stand, whether they're one of these top teams. They've had a rough go of things in some of their matchups as well, 1-for-1 so far in the SPL. What is your kind of high-level analysis on E United as a team?
I think they're a really good team. I mean, they have my former teammate or jungler Scream, and I mean, he's really a good player. He's also an idiot, but he has. I mean, he's very good at the game for sure, and I think he's a very strong point of that team. Probably probably the carry of the team, and everyone kind of just like backs him. And I know that whole team flows together. They're probably in the same scenario as us, where they're trying to find exactly where they need to be, and then they'll just be like super unstoppable. So hopefully they haven't found that out by today, or tomorrow. But because we haven't found it out yet, so confident in it.
And that's kind of maybe the last point here. Going up against a team like United, or really any team at this point, would you say you guys play more on your own game plan and try to push that and find victory that way, or is your mindset maybe more reactionary, see what United are trying to do and play off of that?
We're gonna do our own game plan. We went over like a couple of odds and everything like that, and we want to just be on point with what we have going into it. I mean, we prepped really hard for it. Hopefully we can show up and actually win one game today. That would be nice. But I'm pretty confident going in. We did our reviews and we practiced a lot for it, so I'm confident going into it for sure, doing our own game plan.
I guess the final follow-up question here, quick set prediction. We've got to ask it. What do you think the scoreline is going to be?
I got to say 2-0 Renegades for sure, but in a realistic point of view, it could go, as long as we get one win, it could go 2-1 United or 2-1 Renegades.
Confidence says 2-0, but realistically, who knows? These are two closely matched teams. Thanks for sitting down with me. Best of luck here today. We'll get it back to the desk.
Thank you very much.
Me and Gore at the desk. And I think a lot of great information actually coming out of that conversation. And I think more so than anything, Gore, was the baseline of kind of the vibe in the team right now. You can tell hopes are still high, personalities are still there. It's only been a couple of weeks, and I think this is a team that realizes they've got a good foundation and a lot of room to grow and build into the split.
And that's such a huge key to success. And I think a lot of people are overlooking it. If you look at Sanguine right now, and you maybe look at like mechanically, you might find players that like in a vacuum are going to be mechanically better than them, some that are going to be mechanically worse. But they have a passion and that wants them to get better. Every single one of them. The foundation is there, and they have something to build on. I feel like Renegades is in a very similar spot. The foundation is there. They just have to have the passion to match it, the willingness to take some of these losses in stride and see what they can mold with it, right? Learn from it and then come back in a little bit stronger. They've been willing to pick up picks that other teams have been looking over. Tier is the first one that comes to my mind. They have not shied away from him in some of these sets, and they've run him solo. They've run him support. Like, there's just things where they're willing to go out on the limb just to test it to see if it works, and it feels like they've all kind of got that mentality of just like, you know what, let's see what we can do just to get better as a team. The first couple of weeks, even the first couple of losses don't matter, because, I mean, look at SK from last year. You could not necessarily rise above the bottom 3 in the rankings all year and still find yourself a world championship win if you do it right.
I'm curious as well as to how some of the lane matchups specifically between these two teams maybe translate over into picks and bans. I think one of the biggest matchups in this game, Gore, is going to be between Scream and Lasbra in that jungle. So I wonder if maybe we start to see a little bit higher of an emphasis in this pick ban phase on maybe the Thor. Daji's been a big pick. We've seen some of those high tier assassins actually make their way into the ban column as well, and just like that, Thor taken away.
And honestly, I am never going to be surprised by this. I think we've seen, again, some hit or miss performances depending on which team you're watching pilot the Thor. But more often than not, at this level especially, the potency he brings. The fact that we've kind of seen this dynamic shift, and this is something that's been going on in SMITE for years, because Thor's had the same ult for years, where it's just, cool, either I can initiate on you and get an awesome stun where I can follow up with a lot of damage from my kit. I can go up and just be a living ward, get a lot of vision to make sure this objective we're about to do is going to be safe. Or I can just pop it to scare you away, right? Like, it's not even like, oh, I need to go in on this. Maybe I'm going back to my speed buff, and I know I'm not going to try to fight. I think he's just been so potent as a jungler that it makes sense to get rid of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what we've seen out of Thor for the most part so far here in the SPL. Makes sense. Take him off the board. And Merlin, I think, is absolutely, and maybe more frequently than not, been this first pickup overall by whoever's picking first. When the bans kind of look the way they do here, not surprised to see Merlin. But Odin has been an interesting conversation point, Gore, where early on he was banned out consistently, some nerfs to his numbers, but teams still reaching for him and sometimes even banning him out.
And I think what we saw specifically yesterday out of Odin is kind of this is actually the exact kind of lane I was thinking of, right? If you're watching it was the Knights game where they are pulling this out, you've got 2 ranged stuns now in this duo lane, assuming that Odin is going to be playing kind of that support role. And it was a shift in that dynamic. In week 1, we saw the supports roaming around in the jungle, kind of similar to Season 6, maybe not at the exact same level of aggression, but they were pushing around in mid, they were fiddling around in the enemy jungle to try and stop them from getting experience. Yesterday, the Knights pulled it out as a pure duo lane, and that Odin-Ullr just stun combo locks people down so hard that levels like 1 through 3, there's no escaping it unless you pop your beats.
Ullr has been a massive pick in the Hunter role. Huyi as well. I mean, a little bit less frequent, pick ban 75% of the time, but that also matches his win rate. When Huyi has been picked up, he's won 3/4 of his games. Maybe that's just in the scenario where you want to pick a Huyi, he tends to work. But a lot of teams have been looking towards this Huyi in this long lane to bring some presence in these matchups.
Yeah, we've even seen a couple of teams go out on the limb and ban him away, right? I mean, they are more than willing to try and take it away because of how potent he has been. And again, in my mind, it comes down to, especially in a matchup like this where it's going to be more often than not 1v1s against an Ullr, it is throw the crown on him, and then you're looking at the boxes going your way, right? You can get stuns, you can get a knockup, you can slow him with your ult. Like, all these things kind of coming into combination, making it go more favorable for him to trade one-on-one autos.
And I love the pickup of Hunbats just prior to that Huyi as well for the Renegades. Lasbra Pivotal, as I've brought up a few times, and I think Hunbats, through the past few games they've played, has been one of his big god picks. So I love Renegades getting Lasbra on something comfortable, getting Venenu on that Merlin as well, I think is a big win here. Horus played a massive role for Sanguine yesterday. And Gore, I got to admit, I wouldn't mind him being locked in here, and Renegades seem to agree.
And honestly, it comes down to matching the pace of Odin, right? We saw, I would argue, maybe 2 examples of it. If you put Odin over there, and you go something like a Hercules here for Renegades to bounce with that Hu Yi, then you are looking at trying to do kill lane versus kill lane. It is pure damage versus damage. A Horus lets you play with Prot Shred. He gives you some healing. He gives you a lot in that lane to help corral that Odin and kind of control him in the early game and maybe strip away some of the kill potential E United will have early on.
Well, it's the battle of the low pick rates and high win rates between a Wheelix and Horus. Quick thought, Gore, whose draft do you like better?
Man, I like a Wheelish. I just don't know if she's going to have enough synergy with the rest of the team. Odin Wooler's a little hard to bet against. The same thing for Raijin. I actually feel like I'm going E United here. I like the way they've been able to kind of line up their draft.
I agree, and this is the battle of a couple teams looking to get back to their winning ways. Renegades for the first time, E United for the second time. Game 1, let's kick it off.
Thanks so much, Dave and Gore on the desk. It's over to me and Mifflin now. Hindu Man and Mifflin joining me. Miff, how you doing today? Oh, wait a second.
I'm doing well.
We got action straight away. I'm not going to get you a chance to talk because Star Troll's in trouble already. What's going on straight in the game? A big old fight around the Fury. Ionic ate that Ricochet, but he's still going to be okay for now. Okay, everyone going to back away except Ionic, who still wants to march on and get that ward down by the looks of it. Okay, bit of action early on. Bit surprising.
It is surprising. We don't often see this 5v5 group up start, especially in the SPL. That's a bit of a relic from Season 4, but it seems like both teams are trying to get aggressive around the warding, try and catch anyone out that moves up a little bit too far for that vision. Unfortunately, no one finds a kill, but as far as health and damage go, Renegade come out a little bit ahead.
Yeah, both these duo lanes still dancing around this left-hand side at the moment. I'm not sure if Jake wants to try and slow down the purple invade. It's not going to happen here, as neither one's going to do the purple buff. Snoop is in a good position, though, to get in the wave early. Throws that axe at Barra. Won't slow him down for a moment or two, though. Bit of a dance-off at the moment, but pressure should go the way of Renegades early on. Ionic wasn't in lane in time to really allow some pressure there, but a nice little stun on Jake. So pressure for now on the side of Renegades. Miff, I do want to talk to you real quick about, like, you know, the synergies of these teams, because that's what the desk was kind of talking about here, of how important it is to, you know, get along with your teammates, you know, in this sort of competitive setting. You've been around before, you've been in a couple of teams. How important really is it for teams to get along?
Well, it is incredibly important, but I might be the wrong guy to ask. I was a bit of a child when I was playing competitively, so I'm not sure many of my ex-teammates would really give me a... yeah, I was. You know, I've grown up a bit since then. Caster maturity comes in hot. But that synergy, that being able to work around your flaws as a team is incredibly important. It's very easy to get in your own head or get very dejected when things aren't going your way, especially in this team environment. So you have to have a group of people that you know aren't going to get dejected, that aren't going to really try and shift blame or anything like that, so you can grow as a squad.
It's really funny to see that too, because I think both Renegades and E United have both formed two teams that are really about chemistry, teamwork, and, you know, getting along with each other. Sure, Horrywindy, Ionic, Snoopy have played together before. It doesn't really surprise me there. But Renegades, you know, you saw Ben talking a little bit earlier about how much trust they've got in awesome Jake, who's currently getting beat down, but given as good as he gets to Ionic thanks to the backup of Barracuda there. And I do want to turn the attention to the actual game now, because that Wheelix pick, the desk we're talking about, Myth, and I think this Wheelix pick is really good here. There's a lot of leaps on the side of the Renegades.
Yeah, you can counter out that Hun bot's leap as well as the Hu Yi, and the knockup from Jormungandr, although very short, is just enough for these pro players to get that pull. So there's a lot of ways for Wheelix to get involved. It is a little bit disheartening knowing that in your core 3v3, you really don't have any knockups from your team. The core 3v3 being the support, the mid, and the jungler. It's really off a variety, so I imagine we might see a Wheelix try and camp out this soul lane just a little bit, and SOT on this Achilles wouldn't be a hard target to shut down.
Yeah, I did notice that SOT did have that tier banned away from him by United. They clearly respect that tier play that he can bring. But I guess not just him. It's a bit of a flex pick, I guess, for Renegades in tier, because they can also run it in that dual lane with Jake.
Yeah, I was surprised you gave the credit to the respect for SOT, because Jake has been on an absolute tear with this tier. It's an off-meta pick, but it is a huge amount of aggression, which is going to fit Jake's style.
Speaking of aggression, there's a jump in from Ionic, but he gives as good as he gets from the backup from Barracuda there once again. The support's getting dwindled down, but not scared to really box out. It's really nice, though, to see some duo lane action 2v2. Feels like it's been years since I've been able to say that.
I mean, both of these teams drafted incredible aggressive pressure out of their duo lane. The damage output and CC chain that Horus Huyi can bring is going to be absolutely dominant in the lane, but you can't discount the damage from Odin as well as the CC and damage potential from Snoopy on this Uller. I mean, Axe Stance, Axe Throw, and a Bladed Arrow, Hail of Arrows, it's going to be enough to put anyone in the dirt.
Yeah, Des was also talking about the two junglers this game, Wheelix up against the Hun Bat, Scream versus Lasba, respectively. And keep an eye on those builds there. You can see the blink start in the relic for Scream here. No real surprise to close the gap, and no real surprise to see Lasba being almost forced into taking the beads here, knowing he's up against this Wheelix that could cause him a lot of problems.
It can, and that's going to take a huge chunk out of his engagement factor. That blink is such a huge tool for Hunbots to get Fear No Evil off and maintain his jump for a safety outlet if he has to get out of the fight afterward. So just the pressure of having Willix on the map forces him into that beads pickup, which is a little bit less than optimal, but at the same time, Hunbots is a highly mobile god. He shouldn't be struggling too much, and around a level 12, we might see him pick up that blink anyway.
Just keeping on the levels at the moment, you can see that Yonex are just a little bit further behind than that of Awesome Jake, which shows me that Jake's been showing a bit more experience there in that dual lane with Barracuda. Sure, he'll be level 5 quicker and is, but it does mean that Snoopy should be further ahead, but it's not the case. Snoopy forced to beads and run away. The slow really impacts him there as the sun's dropped down too. Great little play from Renegades. Snoopy was just a little bit overextended on his own there.
Yeah, completely alone and a level down, but on the solo side of the map, SOT going to get picked out. I love it when I call out the ganks in solo lane. I love it when I can predict where these guys are going to go. Lazar might try and defend this blue buff, however, with his ultimate.
Yeah, but 3v1, I'm not so sure about that. With Ionic being over here, he does at least slow down Lasba's aggression. 1-for-1 then across the map, but the difference really being Renegades got that first blood. That little bit of bounty gold really does add up in the early game, especially, I guess, if you get it on the right sort of, position.
It does, and getting that first blood in that long lane, when you're already ahead on the Huyi, it's a good position to be in, especially considering we know what Uller wants out of that lane. He wants to play completely aggressive at all times. It's why you pick that god. He does transition very well into the late game, but he's probably going to be lacking in sustain. I imagine we see him pick up the Crusher after he finishes his boots and Transcendence, so it's not going to be easy for them to go for any sort of cheeky Gold Fury engagements, whereas on the other side, Huyi's already got that Devo's Gloves online. He's going to be stacking that up.
What is this chase going on? Jake just going to use the ultimate to bring the squad in. They're looking at Scream. Fear No Evil used. No beads available, obviously, because Scream went with a blink. Ionix in there, though, but without that ring, he can't slow down Venenu anymore. Jake's the last one out, and a great little play for Renegades as they try to get a pick and do just that. Snoopy could be in trouble, has to leap away, but this opens the window for Renegades to steal away the purple.
This continuous aggression from Renegades is making sure that Ionic can't hit level 5. And the second that he does hit level 5, you have to be wary of the ring. But Odin, before that point, especially from behind, is going to have a hard time in these engagements. It's a huge fight potential that they've lost out on. And the more that Renegades continue to move into the enemy jungle, the more they pressure out these buffs from E United, it's going to be harder for Odin to find the farm.
Definitely an interesting choice here coming out from Ionic too, because it's definitely a build of mine to an extent of starting with potentially some attack speed and movement speed, but he's gone for that full Relic Dagger before boots here. Now Relic Dagger is very useful, and I do think it's pretty impactful, but I'm not so sure I like it that early. I mean, it's only 10% movement speed. Sure, the cooldown's going to help you out some, it's 300 health, but I still feel like full boots first could be a better option.
Well, I actually really do enjoy the Relic Dagger pickup on Odin. When you're playing Odin, you're playing around the ring, so you want to have it up as often as possible, and when your ring is up, that means you need that blink up as well, so you can get those engagements very easily. So now that he's got this Relic Dagger, his blink and ult should be on a similarly cooldown.
And he needed the blink just there to get into Barracuda, but there's no backup from Snoopy. The Suns from Barra zoned him away, and Jake was on zone duty too. Look at that rotation from Renegades too. You also see Lasbra was over here at the same time, and also Venenu was there and available if need be. Renegades looking pretty good so far, even though, when you look at the gold, it's still relatively even between the two teams.
It isn't completely even, especially considering Renegades got the first blood and they have that kill advantage, and they got successful invades off on the red and purple. You'd expect this gold deficit to be a little bit more in their favor. However, United have been controlling the neutral objectives so well. The mid camps are going their way, the small harpies as well as the oracles are all going the way of United, and that's going to slowly keep them in the lead. And now we see the gold shifting a little bit in their favor.
Yeah, I'm still surprised by our next build now because I expected boots after picking up that Relic Dagger. I do like the Relic Dagger for 300 health, you know, early on. Not a lot of supports get that much health in the early game. But not going for boots straight afterwards. That limited movement speed that this Odin's going to have could come back to haunt him. He's going to be a lot of reliance on these blinks here.
There's going to be a lot of reliance on the blinks, as well as not having that movement speed means it's going to be very easy to engage on this Odin. And he's 2 levels down at this point, so he's in a completely precarious situation where he needs to start looking for engagements in order to put himself back ahead and play off his team. However, when he's this far behind and doesn't have any sort of movement speed, it's going to be hard to find those engagements. It's a bit of a catch-20. It seems like he built for playing ahead.
Yeah, I am not too upset with it now because when you look at the actual levels elsewhere, you do have a lead in the jungle ever so slightly for Scream and in that solo lane for Variety now. So this is okay for E United's point of view as Jake is in the jungle trying to see what's going on. E United on the warpath, it seems. They want to invade this blue buff. 4 members strong, but 4 members of Renegades are also in the area. The Dancer beginners, Scream zone to the right-hand side. Lasbra has to jump away from Variety there. Scream not really enraged to look for the ultimate onto Lasbra, but Lasbra did have his beads available. Still, Variety trying to get the blue buff. Knock up onto Solo or Troll, though. Has to ult away, but trapped inside the ring. The drums of war from Horiwind are completely off the mark. I don't think he landed a single one. Scream, meanwhile, ends up falling down, and E United have to turn tail and run away. A missed engagement for E United there. Still, though, aggression's on towards Horiwind as the overhand smash from Lasbra will secure the kill. And Renegade's barrier in mid catches Ionic. 5-1 now for Renegades. This could be a goal, Fury.
At the very offset of that fight, E United was at the favorable position, but the re-engagement from Jake around that blue buff completely shifts the narrative. Yes, Horiwind couldn't quite find his ultimates, but it was truly Jake finding the CC to stop the damage output and make sure that Solo or Troll could get out alive, and immediately afterward, the chase towards Horiwind at that back camp opens them up for this gold free. Renegades are playing incredibly well. Despite lacking some of that farm in the early, they are completely taking control of the game.
Yeah, that was definitely off the back as well of E United getting aggressive around that blue buff on the right side more than anything. But notice the changes to this Horus as well. The To the Skies, it got a bit of a buff. The mobility when you use that ultimate. You've got to be very careful nowadays, you know, about the chase potential that a composition with Horus on their side can really make use of running you down if you get overextended.
They can. That change is so valuable to Horus now. That ultimate is a fantastic reposition tool. Now not only moving faster, but also further along. He gets additional distance due to that speed. So it is really good for maneuvering your team around the map. We saw him teleport 4 of his squad members there. And they burn out Raijin's beads as well. So now Horiwind is in an even more precarious situation. Lasbra with a Fear No Evil could pick him out on his own if he finds a good ultimate.
Renegade's feeling pretty confident about things right now. Lasbra going to hold the wave in mid to make sure Venenu can soak this up as well to keep the track going. Lasbra's still a bit of a lead now for him in the jungle. Scream was ahead of him earlier on until that tumble around the blue buff on that right-hand side. Ionic's here, though, at level 7, trying to slow down Lasbra. Lasbra won't be stunned just yet. Scream was there in backup, but Fear No Evil on 2 splits the difference. It's Ionic cut out of position, but he leaps over the wall towards Barra. Scream has to go elsewhere, but it's Barracuda that gets a 1v1 with Ionic for a moment or two. Hurry there in backup. They just can't find enough damage for now. Hori's preemptive ultimate there does at least taunt in Barra for a second. Not enough to slow down this advance as Renegades are grouped as 5 towards this middle area. Jake, though, challenge to the skies. Where are we going to go?
Looks like they're just going to settle for that red buff invade. Barracuda is doing a fantastic job of rotating out a lane. Every single fight that Renegades take, Barracuda is in that middle of the map trying to cover any sort of option of escape for E United, whereas Snoopy, on the other hand, has been sitting in his lane, keeping the lane frozen at his tower.
And now he's going to get blinked on, forced to beads away from the stun. Nice axe from him, though, and Awesome Jake takes a ton of damage, but he's tanky enough for now to allow Barracuda to go and look for the kill. He won't be able to find it, and it will, though, at least force the ultimate out from Variety. But Scream's here. Great knock-up, and that's going to get a kill onto Barracuda. The chase is on for Variety for Jake now. One more should be able to do it, or a spit to the face. There it is. Variety gets credit for the kill. Good teleport and rotation reunited to answer back Renegade's aggression.
That's a lot of resources used from E United. They do pick up the 2-0 trade. However, Gold Fury's down. They can't really aggress towards these towers quite yet. And on the other side of the map, Renegades are already on that Pyromancer.
Great call from Renegades, though, I guess, Smith. I mean, they get aggressive in the left, E United respond, but that opens a window on this right-hand side, and they really abuse it.
They do. They did it so well. it is really going to come to who gets this mid tower first. That's what my eyes are on right now. United's mid tower, that tier 1 is already below half, and that's going to open up the map completely for Renegades to start shifting their aggression towards that solo side of the map. They can start looking towards making plays around the Fire Giant or the Pyromancer once it respawns. I imagine the next huge fight will erupt around this Oni Fury. Should open up the map even more, allow them to get continuous objectives or push along with those waves. Renegades have a fantastic siege comp. At any point in this game, they decided to group up level 15, level 10, it doesn't matter. They have the awesome Jake 408 to chase down any sort of kill that gets away. They've got Lazarus with the engagement off the Fear No Evil. They've got so many options in order to open up these sieges.
Yonex got a good angle on Barracuda here. No wards down in the jungle, but Barracuda definitely senses some sort of danger there. And you did mention about that mid lane tower. It's interesting because Renegades are definitely giving up their side lane towers quite heavily. Look at Barracuda's, for example, and the fact that, well, Solo Patrols is down, but they've got that pressure in mid instead. Jake looking for a play somewhere. He's going to end up going towards the purple on the left-hand side. Unfortunately, no one's really around, but Lasbro will come along for the ride. Meanwhile, Variety now in the mid lane. Fury's up in about a minute's time here, and that's where you can start to see people positioning more to this left-hand side. Lasbro just dropping down that sentry ward to make sure they've got some good vision in this area.
I like what Jake was going for there with his ultimate. He says, look, we're already grouped up, Lazarus and I, so I might as well go into the ultimate. If anyone's around, they should fall. Unfortunately, there really wasn't anyone. It is a bit of a cheeky ultimate, just trying to see what you can find. But I like the timing of it as well. By the time this Oni Fury spawns, it won't have mattered that he wasted his ultimate because it'll be back up again.
Well, there's 3 members on the left-hand side from Renegades, but it was sniffed out by good ward placement by United on that angle there that Doug just showed us. So they're not going to be able to find a pick just yet, and that should give a bit more time for Awesome Jig to maybe get that ultimate back up for this next Fury. It's going to be an Oni Fury. How do you feel about the Oni Fury at this stage of the game, Myth? Does it make an impact at all, or would you rather have like the gold or, you know, the Primal Fury at this moment?
I think Oni Fury is my favorite gold Fury to get at any point because it forces the enemy team to play the map. If they don't go and clear out those Oni Fury waves, those waves can easily solo towers out, so it's a good way to control the pace and the rotation path of the enemy. It's a good way to make sure you know where they are at all times.
Well, Oni Fury is open. Jake's a little bit deep here, but does have backup, and obviously that nice little escape with the Protective Surge. I'm looking at the mid lane builds real quick, because the last couple of days we've seen a lot of Pythagorum's piece. But here, there's a couple of Soul Gems picked up, and funny enough, Horrywinds was very, very early on in this. Why are we seeing a Soul Gem all of a sudden? I mean, is it just the cooldown of the heal?
It is the cooldown. It's decent damage as well as the lifesteal. I mean, there's a lot of good stats on Soul Gem, but that heal is so impactful in the fights. Any sort of shift in health can completely change a fight. I mean, it's the age-old meditation bait, except you don't have to give up a relic slot for it.
Yeah, a bit of a lack of penetration, though, I will say. And the fact he's got 150 health, I guess, does make him a little bit tankier. Oni Fury pulled, but reset by United, thanks to the presence of Renegades. Lasbro is in the mid lane. He should be able to get some free damage onto that tier 1 tower, thanks to that minion wave. But pulled in is awesome Jake. There's no escape for the Horus there. Ionix gets the ring down on Barracuda, and he has to leap away from the World Serpent of Variety. But still, Renegades hanging around, trying to make sure United can't get onto this Fury. They're all on this right-hand side, positioned in a line, pretty much, down this side. And United realizing they're kind of in a bit of a weird position here to make anything happen. Solo Troll's pretty deep on this Achilles and maybe a little bit isolated here. The rest of Renegades are just holding back, waiting for an opportune moment. But so far, it's just that pick on Jake for all the ultimates out of United.
Yeah, with every ultimate down, if Renegades can find a decent engagement here, even despite the number disadvantage, they should have the advantage in the fight. Ionic gonna see some aggression and pulse.
It hit 2, it banks off the wall on the 3rd attack from Barra. Bit of luck involved, or maybe it's skill, you guys tell me. Venenu taking a lot of damage, but gets the flame waves off onto Snoopy. The Soul Gem did proc there to sustain him back up, alongside that surge coming out from Awesome Jake, who's now back in the fray. And the frenzy's popped, and it's Renegades that find the window. Could United not engage on that Fury there? Is that what went wrong? They just kind of hung around them if they didn't do anything.
I mean, with none of your ultimates available and then immediately off the back of your ADC getting picked out, I don't blame United for being a bit hesitant there. I do, however, want to praise Renegades. It's not easy off the back of a pick of one of your teammates to just stay calm and stay positioned around the Oni Fury and make sure that United couldn't get that free engagement, as well as how they split up the map, how they sent SOT into the back line and had Lazarus in the middle. They knew United that if they do over-engage, if they move up too far into the Gold Fury and try and force the fight, that they would have been completely surrounded. So I do really like the discipline from Renegades there.
And now with these Onion Fury minions pushing, now we've got a bit of pressure around this Pyromancer on the right-hand side. Renegades turn their attention there, and Scream could be under a bit of pressure from Solo or Troll. Variety will teleport back in, though, but Renegades starting to group on this right-hand side a little bit more so. Looking good for the Renegades here so far, Mifflin. They're looking like they're starting to find a bit of form.
They are. I mean, this is a team that we knew could absolutely compete at the highest level. No one of their losses have looked bad. Ionic immediately picked out. That's rough, but a lot of ultimates used by Renegades there. Lazra no longer has his available, and neither does SOT. That Execute's not going to be able to play into this next fight. So I imagine we see a tower pressure rather than the Fire Giant.
Definitely a rough situation for Ionic now. He's 4 levels down against the enemy support. Sure, 1 or 2 levels down is pretty much normal, but as an Odin, you really want that secondary relic at this point if you can. That level 12 so important to support players. Lazra, though, being chased through the jungle pre-beads, which I really love there, just to make sure he doesn't get hit by that gravity surge. But it's always awkward, right, when you have to pre-beads, and you don't even have to waste anything to get them.
Yeah, that is really nice for Lazra, and he should be able to get the tier 2 tower on the other side of the map. Ionic at this point is 5 levels down. He still doesn't have boots, and I don't imagine he picks them up yet. I mean, Jake is running circles around him in pure mobility and utility.
This is a bit of a weird fight. It's 4v3 on the right-hand side. It's 2v1 on the left is going on. And Renegades are coming up huge. Variety's dead. Ionic is now dead yet again. And Horrorwind of the jungle has been left alone. No one here to support him at all. Those drums he's banging away, hoping they'll do something. Not enough to take out Renegades, who get a tier 2 tower to answer back the one E United just got. The 11-4 then. Gold lead around 4,000.
Yeah, not only a gold lead, but also that XP lead. If Renegades decide to return to base here, get some wards out, they can immediately look towards pressuring into this Fire Giant. And due to the fact that E United's tier 1 tower is down, they don't have that bastion of safety in the middle of the map, as well as every single tower down on that solo side. So if a fight does go awry for E United, they won't have anywhere to retreat to, as well as Renegades just have these fantastic chase down tools inside of Awesome Jake. So I imagine we do see this Fire Giant fight erupt very soon.
And there you go, you caught it just then. Fire Giant started up by Renegades. On the way back is Ionic and Scream with Snoopy in tow. 3 versus 4. Lazra's trying to zone away Scream and catches him nicely to keep him busy. The Fear No Evil did a good job of forcing the beads at least. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side, Ionic's trying to frontline as long as he can, but he's losing them almost 1v1 there for a moment. Nice arcane pulling from Venenu, though, and that could be doomsday for Ionic and will be Solo or Troll credited with the kill. And with 1 member dead yet again for United, Renegades can fall back towards the Fire Giant and force E United to come and investigate.
And Scream no longer has his beads either, so it's going to be a very cheeky engagement if E United decide to go in there. And the ultimates are still going to be coming back up from Lazra very soon with all the CDR he has online. It is going to be very concerning for E United to try and move in here. I imagine we see them maybe go for the steal, but not a true engagement.
Solo Troll trying to zone the right-hand side, left-hand side. Lazra's trying to keep Scream busy. Variety ended up walking into the pit, though. World Serpent will at least force the leap out of Barracuda. And continuing on the World Serpent, the second shot was good. Has to fall back now, though. Solo Troll around the back, a little bit isolated, but Backward was close by, with Barracuda and Venenu right alongside him. Renegades are choosing their battles well. United are still just trying to take an answer back where they can. They're not scared of scrapping, though, United, by the looks of it, Miff. They're still going in for these fights. Talking about that, though, there's a frenzy pop from Awesome Jake. In we go, and it's Variety without the World Serpent now. Under a lot of pressure, trying to take down Solo or Troll. Won't be happening today, as the rest of United forced away by Lazra.
I love the decision-making there from Renegades. They know that World Serpent's down, so they immediately commit all of their resources onto Variety, knowing that it should be a very easy pick for them to acquire, and it was. So they return to base afterward. There's still 30 seconds on the respawn from Variety. They can move in towards this Gold Fury as it's respawning, or they can move in towards the Fire Giant and try and force another fight. Renegades have a lot of options here, and E United need to find something to shift it. If they can't win the fights, I'd like to see them maybe allocate some resources towards split pushing, maybe clear out that mid tower that's already at half health, or even try and go and do the other objective. If we see Renegades go to Gold Free, I'd love to see United's trying to get a cheeky Fire Giant. Anything to slow down the roll that we're seeing from Renegades right now would be absolutely pivotal for United.
This Renegades team across their roster here all really struggled last year for the most part in trying to find some substance to their play, but forming together as a unit now. I think a lot of people are baiting into the fact it's Barra's team, But I mean, Solo or Troll and Lasbro weren't on that team. Neither was Venenu last year. This is a completely new look from Renegades, but it's one where they feel confident that the synergy of this team, the morale, the chemistry is really there to build off of. And in this game specifically so far, you can start to see it.
You can. These guys have been working together a lot. I mean, from day one, we've seen flashes of brilliance from Renegades. They've been able to find these early game engagements. They've been able to play through the mid game. It's really around this point of the match, 24 minutes, 25 minutes, when we need to start really paying attention to what they do. At this point, they have had this lead before, but they've thrown it away multiple times, and it is usually around this stance of the Fire Giant. But I'm seeing a lot of discipline that we haven't seen previously from Renegades, so maybe they've already ironed out all those kinks, as Venenu said during that interview.
Yeah, I agree with you, Myth. I think you can just see by the zone work from Solo, Orchol, and Lasbra that they're all on the same page. I'm definitely interested. Who would you expect would be the shot caller on this team?
I would have to give it to Barracuda, as he is the most veteran player on the team, and as well as just having a shot caller in your ADC is nice. However, the communication center of every team should either be the support or jungler.
Nasty little ricochet out from Barra, didn't do a ton of damage, but it did separate LP Unite for a second. Fear no evil used by Lasbra, and already the Will Serpent used. Jake's in the sky, going to fall back to the realistically safer side, but still Variety marching in. Solo Troll goes to the backline, trying to find a bit of pressure there onto Scream, but instead he needs a ton more damage than bargain for. But this has left Hurrywind alone on the backside, and Lasbra whittles down the health bar. Venenu now a little bit overextended, the Solo Troll's too low to escape with his ultimate away from Scream. Great answer back from United, and the chase is now on. The health bars of Renegades are in tatters. Sure, they've got a couple of heals, but they're not going to be able to do much just yet. That's the first time United have won a little bit of skirmish there around this Fire Giant.
Renegades took that fight, absolutely split up. I think they saw what you saw, which was Hurrywind completely split off, and then half of Renegades are completely looking at that, whereas the other half are still taking an engagement that had started previously, and Jake gets left alone to the Wolves. Unfortunately, a small throw, but they should be able to defend this Fire Giant pretty well, especially considering they have the lead.
Yeah, pressure's starting to relieve a little bit. Still 2 minutes 40 on the next Fury spawning. But all the attention in the game so far for the last 5 minutes has been around this Fire Giant area. We saw the Pyromancer go down, and nobody's really like at high level for this for me. I mean, we've got the junglers at level 20 and Venenu at level 20, but nobody else at 25 minutes, Myth. It shows how like scrappy this has been. No one's really been able to find too much farm.
I mean, if you're going to talk about levels, I have to bring it up again. Still a 4-level deficit between the supports from both squads. Awesome Jake at level 16. And, oh, he has. He does have it. And he's got a additional benefit of having that Relic Dagger. But unfortunately, he actually doesn't have that Relic. I imagine we see him go back and buy it now.
Yeah, there he goes. Back to base to try and pick that one up. We'll see what he ends up going for here. What would you expect to go for an Odin in this circumstance? Well, I guess Frenzy to match Awesome Jake's Frenzy, right? Is that the case?
It is, and as well as the fact that if you drop your cage and drop your frenzy inside of it, everyone fighting in there is going to be having a huge buff. It's going to help them fight into these objectives, as well as if they do get a lead, they could use it to siege these towers. Frenzy is so valuable.
Scream was a bit deep on that left-hand side there, and with Bionic coming back from base, there's 3 members of Unite trying to defend a Fire Giant. Renegades are trying to burst this one down as quick as they can. The Suns are doing work, as is the Merlin, but United steal away the Fire Giant. A huge come-up for them after being on the back foot for so long. Solo Troll's alone, but a great heal from Jake keeps him topped up, and Solo Troll should be fine. Bad news bears, though, for Lasbra as he gets soloed down by Hurrywind, and Scream takes out Solo Troll, but Barracuda, the Man Mountain, leaps into 3, tries to bring down a couple of carries to make sure this Fire Giant's not going to work out that well. But Nenu falls. It's Jake versus Scream, and Jake says, "Not today, sunshine." It's a 4-for-4, but United steal the Fire Giant.
I mean, United are definitely the beneficiaries of that engagement. Yes, it is a 4-for-4, but they get the Fire Giant, slow down Renegades, and this is exactly what I was worried about. That engagement from Renegades was a little bit sloppy. They were all 5 grouped on that Fire Giant. No one was truly on zone duty, and they burned it a little bit too quickly, so peeling off of the Fire Giant wasn't even an option because they had to be worried about the steal, and instead they stick to it, take damage from the fight, as well as losing the Fire Giant off the back end of it. That's about as poorly as it could have gone. And that's a little bit of what we were concerned about, that 25-minute mark where Renegades start to flounder around the Fire Giant. Seems like they haven't completely freed themselves of those shackles.
Yeah, I'm not sure what actually secured that Fire Giant. Let's have a little look at the replay if we can and just see exactly how United got there, because I was so caught up in the actual action around it that I just didn't know. That's not a replay, that's me.
Hi guys, it's us, the casters, and now a replay.
We're on camera, but now we're back into the replay. Here's a little look at what it was. Was it I can't even tell from that. Maybe it was Odin's 3, if anything, or Hori went over the wall. I guess could have been the state of affairs there. But a huge come up with a United. I was going to mention the lack of secure from Renegades really does come into play here a little bit, Myth.
It does, but that was a sloppy engagement from both sides. I mean, we couldn't tell what really stole it, and that is really definitively telling us that it could have gone either way. Neither team made a real concentrated effort towards a confirmation. We didn't see any big abilities come out or anything like that, so it really was a 50-50 toss. And now E United going to go ahead and try and pull out this Gold Fury and continue their lead.
Oh, but they did reset it just then by Solo or Troll's pressure. Awesome Jake stunning onto Variety, forces the ult. Oh my god, and Variety just disappeared. He was trying to ult away. Jake now in the chase with the To the Skies as Lasper engages on Snoopy. Fear no evil into the wall, puts the pressure on Snoopy, and there's Jake to follow up, but no one came with him. Instead, he'll have to rotate back and pick up the scraps of Ionic. But Renegades, after a United now trying to get the Fury, answer back with an attempt of their own at dissuading the aggression. Man, this is back and forth. Oh, nice pull from Scream, but the backup from Solo or Troll isn't going to be enough to save his life. Drums of Warp Up from Hurrywind will whittle down the health bar of Solo or Troll, and the chase is now on. Lasbro may need to help him out and get involved, but it may be too little too late as Scream gets the kill on Solo or Troll.
We'll call it a game of throws. What was a 2-for-0 turns into a 2-for-2 and no objective off the back end of it. Had Renegades decided to just back up and do the Primal Fury, that would have been available, but it seems like half of the squad wanted to move in towards that Tier 2 tower in mid, and instead Jake and SOT were playing around that Tier 2 in left, and things just didn't pan out how you would want.
I am losing my mind that we're 30 minutes in the game and near enough everyone outside of the supports is still not level 20. I've got solo laners and hunters that aren't level 20 yet. Even though people are in the lead in this game to an extent, that's crazy the amount of action we're seeing in this one. 30 kills in 30 minutes.
I think the XP deficit from the Hunters for Renegades really comes off the fact that Barracuda was shifting a lot of his focus in that early game towards moving his fight into the mid. He didn't spend nearly as much time in lane as Snoopy did, so the beneficiary of that is Snoopy now that it's hit that 30-minute mark and the gold deficits are about even. Yes, it's only a single level lead, but that is going to continue to grow as gold is going to start shifting towards Snoopy's favor as well. He might be able to start to allocate some of that gold towards sustain in his build. Still no lifesteal online for Uller. However, if you take a peek at Barracuda's build, we get to see that age-old crit build, and I imagine that's going to be a Poison Star to finish it out.
Yeah, we do have a Thorns online for Variety so far, but we're not going to see much more than that. Interested to see what Variety's going to go for next. Is it going to be a Pythax piece potentially on this Jormungandr? A bit more sustain for him? It's not an item we generally see on the Jorms.
It really isn't. He's showing that he's willing to build those ore items. He's got that Void Stone. I would imagine it is Pythax piece. You know, help Hurrywind out a little bit, get him some of that additional power and lifesteal with the aura on it. But that is an interesting pickup, and he's going to be a lot squishier than your standard Jormungandr.
It does feel like both teams have maybe agreed to not buy too much anti-heal as well. I mean, both of them going with these soul gems, not much anti-heal in the game at all. So the sustain is a real thing here this game. Specifically for Awesome Jake, who does have that Protective Surge, may need to help out Solo or Troll zone away some of these carries. Drums of War sounded by Hurrywind, though, does pretty good damage. But now Jake may re-engage again. Last around the back with a beautiful Fear No Evil. Isolates Ionic, but Ionic gets over the wall. Jake, meanwhile, keeps Snoopy and Hurrywind busy. Ionic does fall down to Veneno at the tail end. And still, though, the chase is on. Suns onto Hurrywind. Beads forced, Thunder crashing away. Escapes the slow from Awesome Jake. Variety not so lucky. He has to try and run away as fast as his little worm legs can carry him. If he's even got legs, it's not going to help him out now. With two tanks being down on a United, this could be an FG attempt.
And it absolutely should be. FG should be pretty easy for them to pick up here. Scream, the only one really in a position to move up, and they have vision on him as well as the decent ward coverage. So this Fire Giant should be very easy for them to confirm, especially considering Raijin no longer has his ultimate, so that steal potential is down. Really, the only steal worry you have is Snoopy, and he was in base.
Yeah, no chance there, especially with Solo or Troll doing very good zone work along with the wards after the fact. Renegade's engagements are starting to look pretty nice to me. We're seeing Jake look to zone people away, whereas we've got Lasber being willing to engage a little bit more, you know? He's looking for these Fear No Evils that hit multiple members and just forcing E United more to scatter than stay as a unit.
Yeah, I mean, Lazar has been playing this Hunbots all year so far, and no team has really thought it worthy of banning out, but I think that is truly a mistake. He's so comfortable on this character, and he is playing as almost a solo agent, if you would. Inside these team fights, if you watch Lazra, he's not playing around the rest of his team. He's just looking to find the best ultimate possible. He might be able to pick out someone on his own, and then he backs out completely. I also really enjoyed Awesome Jake's usage of the ultimate. Normally you see the team group up around it and then try and get the jump on someone, but he's been using it on his own, maybe landing on his squad to drop a shield, or as we saw in that last fight, completely zoning out Hurrywind and Snoopy, making sure that no one could follow up off the CC from the rest of United.
A lot of talk about 408 coming into this season, but honestly, this game specifically, I mean, been involved in 18 kills so far. Not a bad little slash line, especially on this Horus play. Horus really on the rise again. I expected to see more of him last year, but I do feel these buffs have just added an extra edge to this character that we're starting to see more of it, and people really starting to abuse this ultimate a little bit more.
They are. I'm trying to figure out how United's going to defend around these Phoenixes. The best defense they have is truly they have to engage outside of the Phoenix with the Odin, get the cage off, and try and deal as much damage as possible. I doubt they're even looking to get the complete picks, as now we have a 6,000 gold deficit in favor of Renegades as well as the Fire Giant. So they're really just trying to deflect these pushes. If Hurrywind can find a nice ultimate, if Scream can find a pool for himself, that will be the best way for them to defend. But Renegade's siege is so good simply because they have these huge AoE ultimates as well as Venenu on this huge AoE mage and Lazra with the Fear No Evil. So many ways to disrupt the backline or even stop any sort of re-engagement from E United. It's going to be very difficult for them to stop anything that they want, especially if Renegades decide to split the push. They can send the 4-1, 1 in mid, 4 in that long lane. It's going to be no one on the side of E United can take the 1v1 against Lazra, so there's a lot to be worried about.
A very patient game from Renegades, though. I mean, they get the FG, they clear out some of the tier 2 towers, fall back to base as a unit. And here comes that push you were speaking of now. They're going to send Awesome Jake on the left alongside Venenu and Barracuda. Meanwhile, you can just see Solo or Troll and Lasbra both hanging around this middle area, but the wall coverage from Reunited isn't too bad to get some vision going on. You see the pings on the right hand side. If Lasbra goes over there, it's a bit of a trickier chance for him to really help out the Renegades in this left hand side push. Instead, he thinks better of it, coming back towards this middle lane. And like you said, it's all about how well United can defend on this Phoenix line here.
It really is, and it seems like they've got two people trying to stop Lazar from gressing in. I love it when I call the 4-1 split. Everything's going my way. The engagement starts, however.
Yeah, and Jake manages to get Snoopy's beads early on in that engagement. That's a nice little win without the cost of much at all. Jake did use his ultimate though, and Blink, I would say. But it is a support after all. Minion wave pushing up mid lane now, and left-hand side, Renegade's waiting for that minion wave in tow. Keep an eye on Scream, just trying to match Lasbra, but Jake to the skies again. Is Lasbra going to go with it? Looks like he is. The Fear No Evil look should be towards Snoopy if they can find it, and that's exactly who they catch. The stun combo from Jake sets up the kill for Lasbra too. The chase on from the Will Serpent from Variety just zones away the carries of Renegades, but the damage was done. Without this all on the map, this becomes a little bit easier. Solo Troll going in towards Ionic, and Ionic trying to hold his own, but a nice pull in from Scream there onto Solo or Troll. Barracuda, however, annihilates Scream, and you know what? I thought for a second Renegades might just go on for the end, and they might just do that here, Myth.
Yeah, the only people available to defend are Hurrywind, Ionic, and Variety, and no ultimates available either. The damage should be able to come out. Merlin just sinking as much as he can in that Titan.
Well, with that execute going down, I think that's all she wrote. Renegades are going to take game one over E United here. A back and forth encounter that honestly, I wasn't sure which way it was going to go after the first 10-15 minutes. Renegades held the lead for a while, but E United certainly battled back.
I mean, in the early game, it really was all Renegades. It wasn't until that 20-minute mark around the Fire Giant that we saw them maybe slip up a little bit and struggle. It was a 10-minute dance before we saw even the first Fire Giant fall. But fortunately for them, once after that first slip up around that team fight, they got to get back into it, confirm the Fire Giant, and from there, it was all them.
Crazy plays from Renegades. They find one of their first wins in the SPL. Can they find the actual win? We'll find out after we get back to the desk to break it down.
Much appreciated, Hindu, and it's game win number one here for the Renegades, and really, Gourdmeister, it's finally, I think, a weight off the Renegades' shoulders that you've been able to start a game strong as you have in your previous 4 attempts, and then actually finish this one out. A complete game, finally, from the Renegades, and it ends in a win.
Yeah, still having... I don't want to say shaky calls. The calls were good, but shaky executions in some of those moments, like maybe not fully committing to a fight, and there was one right in the middle where the Renegades kind of split up. A couple of people wanted to chase down Hurrywind. Everyone else was in a different engagement that had kind of initiated that fight to begin with. But this was the hump to overcome, right? It was to not just get yourself a lead and then push the game to 30-plus minutes. It was get that lead, go as long as you need to, but get your win. And that's why this team is looking so much different. And Hindu highlighted it throughout that cast, because we're looking at it as, oh, it's Bera's team, but it's got nothing but new members on it, right? I mean, they're coming in fresh, and they're playing fresh as well. You can look at Bera, the fact that he's playing in a fashion that it kind of feels, I don't want to say has been devoid, but has maybe been lulled out throughout last year. It definitely feels like a refreshing take on the Hunter here on Renegades. But I want to give a lot of credit to Venenu. I want to give a lot of credit to Awesome Jake, because I think a lot of the plays both of them were making enabled this team, right? That's what ended up opening up that door for them. Jake wanted to get aggressive a lot. He had a lot of support. The Prot Shred played a huge role in a lot of these team fights and him helping lock it down. And that just allowed Venenu to melt people with damage. Merlin does it, but Vin just kind of took it to another level this game.
I agree. I think top to bottom on kind of my notes from game one, I have everyone from Renegades listed in some capacity, and I do kind of want to hone in a little bit more on Jake, and maybe more specifically the Horus. I think Horus now is maybe starting to be one of my favorite support picks, and I think it looks especially good in the play style that Jake wants to bring to the table. He wants to play aggressive, wants to have that kind of dive potential that Horus technically brings with his ultimate, but it's also it's like safe aggressiveness in a way. There's enough safety built into the rest of the Horus kit that I think it really works for Jake.
It's one of my favorite things. Again, as someone who loves playing support, Horus is like that. He's a little risky because you're going to be a little squishier early on, but if you make him work, it plays so beautifully for you. And again, that small buff, I would argue, to his ult makes his ult actually part of his kit. Before, he had 3 abilities and then a 4th like kind of meme attached to it that had a long cooldown. Now he actually has a full kit to it. A knock-up that allows you to help set up your team. You've got a dash that's going to shred protections and lock down an enemy, or a dash that's going to heal your teammates or any friendlies in the area. Like everything about his kit is centered around being team-oriented, right? It's why you're not going to see him go off into the solo lane. Maybe, like I've seen, going back to Weekend stream, I've seen some people try to throw him out into the jungle. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But right now, Renegades make him look good, and yesterday we saw Sanguine pulling him out. I expect Horus to kind of start to rise up in terms of meta picks.
Agreed. And I was curious, kind of pivoting to the jungle conversation. I mean, a battle in the jungle in game number 1. Lasbra, massive impact on a lot of the fights. Fear No Evil's hitting their mark. And Scream as well, I think affected 9 of the 11 or so kills that United ended up with. So I'm not surprised at all, I don't think, Gore, to see Hoonbat's banned away now. Obviously fits into Lasbra's playstyle very well as well. So he's going to have to look somewhere a little bit different here in the jungle, but still lots of great priority picks on the table. Camazot's one of them, and Renegades are going to give Hu Yi right back to Barracuda.
That's a dangerous game. I think it's for both teams, realistically, right? I mean, you're looking at Camazotz as one of the strongest and deadliest guys that has been in this game lately. The sustain, the damage, the control, the safety, everything he has going for him. Well, it's just dangerous to play against, and it's dangerous to give it up. We've seen Camazotz on his own carry games, so it's definitely maybe a coin flip here for Renegades as to whether or not it's going to go successful or not. But giving a Hu Yi Horus back to 2 guys who are now warmed up on it here for Renegades is just as big of a threat. I think it's going to be a little worrisome for that duo lane in E United. I think they might have to switch things up to deal with it. Sobek could be solo, could be support, could be a way to try and deal with and stifle that Horus a little bit.
Now, eyebrows somewhat raised. I think Kukulkan 2 weeks ago would not have surprised me to see not only picked, but potentially banned out in the first couple of waves. 6% pick rate, 6% ban rate, 0% win rate here for the Kukulkan. Obviously hit with a few nerfs, but still just generically in that kit, plenty of control there for the mid lane, and in a lot of team fights as well.
I mean, it's what you want. It's the same reason we actually see Raijin getting picked up, where it's just from far away you can do really safe high damage, right? And that's what Kukulkan brings to the table. Granted, I think Kukulkan has a little bit more, I want to say secure in his kit, just because his ult is so solid, as well as the tornado being safe, and just because of those changes, very similar to Aphrodite's birds changes that were recently added into the game, that initial tick of damage you get now just feels better. and it enables this to be a safe mid lane, right? It's not going to be as fun or as damaging, I would argue, as the Merlin was, so we have to kind of keep our eyes on how potent this Kukulkan is, but if you can't go Kukulkan, or you can't go Merlin, you can't go Raijin, there's a few mages, I guess, left on that list of high tier that you want to go for, and he's sitting up there.
Gore, look at this presence that E United have brought right towards Lasbra. Ban out the Pele, ban out the Cirquette, take away the Hoonbats as well. Wheelish banned out by the Renegades. So they're going to force Lasbra, I'm not going to say way down his god pool, but it's going to have to be something a little bit different here. Daji maybe jumps to mind here. She's often in that conversation of kind of jungle gods where a lot of junglers in this league will start to pivot once the Hoonbats, maybe the Cirquette banned out here. On her locked in for E United. So maybe presumably a jungle Camazot's there for them. I'm not going to ask you to predict, but maybe what are some junglers that you hope to see here for Lasbra?
Susanna.
How about
I'll
Susanna?
just say, like, it's very convenient for her to get locked in. He's actually been very, very big and on the rise lately, so it's not too surprising. It's not immediately where my mind went, but that is going to be very solid in terms of keeping up pace and enabling some aggression for the team. That being said, my eyes almost immediately go towards Camazotz again having that sustain, Sobek having some anti-heal. It's going to be harder for Renegades to get off the ground the way they did last game.
And they'll hope to do so and secure themselves their first win in the SPL in Season 7. Graham, take us into Game 2.
I will, Dave, and as you were just saying there, I mean, Renegades, first win of Season 7, but there's a chance here for Barracuda. Hang on a second, I was going to mention Barracuda, but once again, United on the prowl into the enemy jungle with this Sobek leader, Mifflin. Hey, Miff, you want to hear something really interesting? You know when
I do, actually.
The last time Barracuda won against an SPL team, you know what the date was?
I don't. Is this a quiz? I don't know the answer. I'm sorry.
You should know this. Everybody knows. May 16th, 2019 was the last time Barracuda won an SPL set. That's how long it's been.
Almost
Now,
a full year. I mean,
he won a game in placements against one of the Challenger Circuit teams, sure, but against SPL opposition, SPL caliber teams, it's been almost an entire year. And right now, Renegades could do it today.
they absolutely could, especially considering last game, Renegades, the entirety of their early game aggression was born out of that duo lane. And in game 2, they got the exact same comp. Barracuda on that Huyi, Jake on the Horus, and Ionic seeing the same level of aggression that we saw in game 1.
How do you feel about the Horus getting through again? I think really Jake had a great game in it last time. Do you reckon it was worth banning it, or was the focus towards Lasbra better?
I think that it would have been worth a ban, especially considering in the first phase we saw the tier ban come out, which is, for my money, I'm going to say targeted towards Jake, but he was shown so well that he can play that Horus. Now Snoopy in some trouble. False.
Oh, he can't get away from it, and now Renegade under pressure too. They just stepped up too much against Jake, and that engagement with the stun was just beautiful. He walked up, stunned Snoopy. Snoopy didn't bead, and even if he did, it wasn't going to save him at all either.
Yeah, that damage potential out of the Horus and the Huyi is so high. And that does play into what I said. I'm surprised that they let it through, because that's exactly what happened in Game 1, and it's happening in Game 2 all over again.
I will note out as well, though, the Horus change that I was talking about so excitedly earlier on isn't even in the game yet. So this game's got to get better as time goes on with the changes made towards the ultimate. To this guy's still at the same level for at least a time. In Thunder Crashing Rory window. Beautiful play from United with Scream flanking in. The damage was good, just not enough to find a kill. But at least they whittled down their health bars.
Yeah, that's exactly the type of play we expect to see. But awesome Jake on the back end. Now Hurrywind alone.
Pre-beats. Not going to help him out, those pre-beats whatsoever. The knockup was good, and Lasbra gets credit for the kill. Turnaround play. Works out beautifully there. And now Renegades with a 2-0 lead, and Scream under pressure as well. Just trying to get away from the danger zone. That is the 3-man army of Renegades chasing him down. All the while, Barracuda on the left-hand side is keeping 2 members busy that the United can't answer back. That's 3 kills now for Renegades in less than 3 minutes.
That's 100% off the back of Jake's play. I mean, he gets the kill in duo lane, immediately rotates out and facilitates 2 more kills in the middle lane. He's playing so well on this Horus. It's something that you have to be concerned about. This CC that he can bring is so high. The stun into the knockup It's so potent, and we see it coming into fruition time and time again for him in this set. They're going to have to slow down his rotation path, hope that he doesn't continue to get this level of free casting as well. Horus is not the safest pickup in that lane, so maybe if we see some aggression out of the Achilles towards the long lane, he might be able to shut down the Horus, stop him from rotating out.
Ionic tries to come in and slow down Barracuda, but a great ricochet stun onto him will slow down that. And that's kind of what you were hoping for here for Reunite in this dual lane. Now, if Barra's going to get left alone here, Myth, you really want to zone him off this experience as much as possible.
And that's exactly what they're going to do. Barracuda instead going to return to base, but that can't hold for long. The second Jake's back in that lane, it's the same level of kill potential that we saw beforehand. I'd like to see United maybe shift their focus towards ganks, maybe play exclusively off of the burst potential out of the mid laner, but for now, it is truly going to return back to farming. 1,000 gold already, 3 minutes in the game towards Renegades.
Yeah, and 1,000 gold is pretty substantial at this moment in time. Sure, split it 5 ways, it's 200 gold apiece, but that does add up quite nicely. Awesome Jake doing a very good job on leveling here as we tune into the solo lane, variety against solo or troll. Interesting to see the Camazots picked up again. We've not really seen too much solo lane Camazots as of late, but he's definitely viable against likes of Jormungandr here in the laning phase.
I do like the Jormungandr pickup, knowing that was going to be a Camazotz solo. It's a bit of an ongoing joke that Jormungandr is just the upgraded Sun Wukong because of the level of safety that he brings. There's not many gods in the game that can really fight toe-to-toe with Camazotz, so if you know you're not going to win the fight, you might as well play for that late game disruption, and that's what Jormungandr brings. He won't exactly win that lane, but the second the team fight phase erupts, he should be able to bring a similar amount of pressure as Camazotz.
Yeah, I completely agree. Ricochet doesn't land, but leaping from Snoopy wants to take the trade against Barracuda. Ionic round the corner now coming in, but Barra's winning the auto trade, and Snoopy's baiting out as long as he can. Barra falls back, ultimate used by Snoopy to try and buy some time from the knockup, but Lasbra came in for cleanup in aisle 1. Now the sun's dropped down on Ionic, and the knockups are just too much. The pull away from Lasbra wasn't clean, but Barra gets credit for the kill again. Or should I say that for the first time. Renegades now up 5-0 with a 1,500 gold lead.
Yeah, they are absolutely running with it. This aggression is still born off of Jake. He's playing this match absolutely perfectly. The 408 proving to all the haters that he isn't a question mark in the league. He's playing so well. He's completely controlling the pace of the match. He's almost operating as a secondary jungler with this warrior out of the support role, and it's working perfectly fine. Even when he's not playing in that duo lane, just the presence of that global ultimate means that in that long lane, United has to show respect on the off chance that Jake decides to ult in.
It's such an interesting time to watch Renegades. I mean, everyone on this team has a point to prove. Jake, you know, underestimated by a lot of people. Everyone expects him to troll around like he does in the rank scene. You've got Lasbra, who got his foothold into the SPL last year, but never really found anything of substance. However, this game, those two together are really being utilized well. I'm surprised by the level of synergy those two have actually got to rotate around the map and support each other and the rest of the team.
Maybe it's a bit of synergy of the underdogs, but let's hold that thought as this fight happens in mid.
Oh, the ultimate from Veneno just removed Hurriwin's life, and it's one of the benefits of having the Cuckoo against Raijin matchup. Raijin kind of just hangs around in that ultimate, gets slowed down, so it's an easy prime target for Veneno to connect with the ult. Luckily enough, though, Lasbra will survive and fall back to base. Cuckoo's going to be a little bit careful in the mid lane with Ionic's rotation. It'll be fine at the moment. Hurriwin forced back, however, as the rotation from Jake, he even ulted there, just looking for the lazy back out of Hurriwin. Just a little bit too late to the action, but Jake in mid comes under the tower. Hello, I'm not so sure about this one. Scream, though, not going to engage because he does see Lasbra and Veneno there. But Venenu's now at mana after the tornado. That tornado did hit Ionic, and now Ionic, who stepped on forward, is going to lose his health bar. Scream just kind of watched on like a voyeur. He didn't want to get involved, and that's just going to allow Ionic to fall down.
I can't even begin to imagine what was going through Jake's head with the ultimate there. No one was there to follow up on that engagement under the enemy tower against a Sobek, but instead it works out perfectly as just a bait. I mean, that is a surprising play, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm still confused about that, because Scream kind of watched on going, I guess we've got nothing, and then went, oh, I best get involved, but it was too late. It was too little too late. Not so sure about that play from Jake, though, but he didn't get punished. At the end of the day, it's another kill for Renegades. And now they're in a prime position. Lasbra 3-0-2 in the jungle, involved in 5 of the 6 kills so far. This is looking good. Looking really good.
As well as a 2,000 gold lead, and the gold free has just spawned recently, so E United has to be worried about that. Barracuda doesn't have the same lead that he had last match, so he has to sit in that lane a little bit longer. However, if the fight does shift over towards that duo side of the map, Gold Fury is going to be a huge threat that Renegades can put onto E United, and they have the confirm as well. I mean, Kukulkan's got that huge burst damage, so if at any point Renegades does position around there, E United's going to have to respond in full force.
Well, then left-hand side is looking opportune for the time being. Renegades will get that red buff. There's varieties. Loud and Mana here on this right-hand side. Does have his blue buff in tow, however. So just keep an eye to see how that works out for him. Just trying to sustain in that lane. Hasn't been back to base for quite a while, though, Variety, looking at that. Just still his Warrior Tabby online. It's a long time to be sat in lane, but I guess if you're not being pressured, you don't have to worry. Speaking of pressure, Jake just blinks away from an awkward angle back towards this left-hand side as Ionic now returns in tow.
I like that play to just use your blink for safety. I mean, he's been able to find the engagements without it, and you might as well, with a huge lead as you have, play as safe as humanly possible. It doesn't really matter as long as you are not giving up any sort of ground, and I like that play from Jake, especially considering Renegades is a team that we're used to seeing throw these early game leads and maybe make slight misplays around the jungle. So I like that level of safety. It's showing me that Jake has learned a lot of discipline in his short time in the SPL.
Now as it stands here, everyone just continuing to farm up from both sides here. E United really looking for scraps at the moment. They do have an experienced lead in the solo lane for the time being, though, for Variety here. Just an etch ahead of Solo War Troll for now, as he has stuck in that lane for so long. But that's making Jake pay some attention here. Jake did stop at a ward, so Variety knows what's going on. The ward placement for Variety pretty solid, and Jake's in an awkward spot. However, the Protector Surge will keep him safe. Keep an eye on Lasbro coming around the corner, but three members of E United are here first. Stunned onto Solo War Troll, tries to get the ultimate and will do so. Lasbro channeling the Typhoon, does a good job, but for ult exchanges, Variety and Ionic use their CC immunity to stay alive, and now the aggression onto the blue buff appears again. Lasbro's still here though, watching on. Won't be able to do much about it for the time being. E United find a very small win, stripping away some experience on this right-hand side.
They did, but the fight isn't quite over yet. We saw that entire time Lasbro was looking for the pick on a scream, and he finally finds it. Now Hurrywin left alone in the lane. It's going to be a return to equity here as they just go back towards the farming. However, Renegades still have this enormous lead despite losing out on that invade, and they can position towards that gold free off the back end of that pick.
Yeah, here's the Gold Fury play coming up now, especially with Scream being dead for a few more seconds. Could be a 3v4 situation on this left-hand side. Lasbro on zone duty. Snoopy going to rotate in, though. Try and do something with this. And her Desert Fury just a little bit too early, but it will at least force out the reset from Renegades. They recognize the danger could be there, so Renegade's just going to fall back, not wanting to make a mistake here and give up this nice little comfortable lead they've got. So tough game for United to work back into. The kills on everything there. Realistically, kills are great. You've got to find the extra stuff after that. The experience, the gold lead has to continue to grow.
They do. This is a lot of discipline we're seeing, but this 3,000 gold lead has remained stagnant for 3 minutes, as you said, which is not exactly the position you want to be in. With a lead as sizable as this, I'd imagine Renegades should be looking towards maybe sieging a tower if you don't want to move towards one of these neutral objectives in the Pyromancer or the Gold Fury. Instead, just continued aggression in the short lane.
Variety has his ult and needed it to get away from the danger there, but Solo Troll might just give chase here. First Will Serpent short for Scream. Changes his mind about the extra aggression, I guess, with the pings going down to Ionic there just to give that vision. Make him recognize it would have been at least a trade out that might not have been worthwhile. Instead, Renegades just holding on and playing relatively safe for now. Teleport is available for Solo Troll to get back to the lane, however, and soak up this farm. But his blue buff on that right-hand side is a little bit susceptible for the time being. However, with Variety basing low on mana, no action there will continue.
The longer this game remains in this stalemate, E United is pulling ahead ever so slightly. They're finding these invades. They're finding the neutral objectives because the Renegades are putting so much pressure into that solo lane. The longer nothing happens, this gold lead is going to keep closing and closing. What was 3,000 is now 2,600. It's going to continue to go that way. I would like to see Renegades make a concentrated effort towards forcing a fight or even moving towards in.
No chance for them to force a fight when Variety's being focused on now. Lasbro rotates back to this lane and pins down Variety. Without the ultimate available, it just makes it so much harder for Camazots to escape ganks from the likes of Susano. On the left-hand side, meanwhile, Renegades will take the Pirates and the Oracles, and they won't attack the Gold Fury just yet. However, to the skies coming out from Awesome Jake yet again, looking for a pinch on Snoopy. He smells the danger but leaps right into the danger zone. Luckily enough, the ult from Jake landed before Snoopy did, and the Impale will self-peel him away. Nice escape from Snoopy there.
He did a very good job of maintaining his beads. Had he not found that impale, he would have lost that active or his ultimate at the very least. So that is a good play. Jake going to lose out on his ultimate there. That's a huge engagement factor down for Renegades. Is going to be down for a long time as well. But I'm sure they're not too worried about it. It seems like they're also comfortable playing at this passive pace. Now 4,000 gold in the lead. I imagine we do see him shift towards this Gold Fury at some point. Eventually, an objective has to be taken by either team. Renegades seems like they want to get a couple picks before they really commit on to anything even remotely risky.
Well, they do have that Spirit of the Nine Winds as well, one of the best securing tools in this game specifically, at least, with how it stands now. But at the moment, I'm not sure if it's E United looking a little bit discombobulated. They're not really all on the same page today so far. Or it's just Renegades not making too many mistakes and picking their windows wisely. How do you feel about it, Myth?
This is Renegades playing exactly how we want them to play. We've seen flashes of this level of just brilliance, flashes of this level of early aggression on every single one of their sets beforehand, but before they were making rookie mistakes or even just getting picked out. Instead, now we're seeing a complete shift of focus. If I had to guess what was going on behind the scenes, maybe Renegades coach said, all right, guys, we need to play slower, and we're seeing that completely taken in stride as they play the slowest version of Smite we've seen, but also the cleanest from them.
Yeah, I think one person you mentioned there, the sixth man, that coach, Rowe, is the coach of this Renegades team. And he actually is definitely more about, well, honestly, it's about chemistry for Rowe. The Australian coach is definitely the ones that are almost like mums to their teams to try and make sure everyone's happy and feeling good about it. And I think that's one thing Renegades definitely needed was a spirit boost and confidence in themselves. And today so far, they are really showing that. United, on the other hand, I'm waiting for them to really get in action. They've not found a kill just yet. And I'm really starting to struggle here, Myth, to find out who's the one that they need to turn to try and get them back in this game.
I mean, if I'm playing as United, I'm just waiting again for Renegades to start something up. They can't really be the aggressors on these objectives. They have to look for the encounter engagement. Scream could disrupt the backline very easily. Ionic might be able to find a pluck if someone moves up too far, likely Jake, as he is the initiator. But instead, Renegades get gold free for free.
Yeah, completely. No one really in the area to do anything about that. Spirit of the Nine Winds was used by Veneni for secure just in case. Better safe than sorry. But I guess that's the state of the SPL this season, Myth. I mean, last week I should say, 2 weeks ago, E United beat Rival. But now they're on the back foot against E United. I think this SPL season's looking like almost anyone's at the moment.
It is a highly competitive season, to be sure, but half of that is likely due to the discomfort of playing online. That's a little bit new.
Disaster. Variety was lazy back in after trying to proxy farm a wave, got spat on over the wall by Solo or Troll, and now the chase is on to run down the Bat. No hell for you, friend. Your return there without a choice in the world. 3 members of Renegades finding that pick on the right-hand side. Meanwhile, E United are just busy elsewhere on the map, just trying to find farm wherever they can. And one by one, they're getting picked apart.
30 seconds on that spawn. Renegades have full run of the map here. They could very easily move in towards Pyromancer, and it seemed like that might have been the call as Barracuda was rotating out, but he returns over to his lane. I'm sure he trusts his squad to pick that up on their own, and it will go completely uncontested towards them. The game is opening up slowly, ever so slowly towards Renegades. 5,000 gold now in favor of them, and not a single tower taken off of E United just yet. That's so much farm left on the map that they are favored to take if they do decide to do the 5-man siege.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Myth, actually. I mean, 5k gold lead at 16 minutes is huge, but then take into account there's no towers down. That's even more of a gold lead, right? That's huge. Such a monster situation to be in. Variety, though, trying to get aggressive towards Jake and Solo or Troll. Solo or Troll trying to body block and help out until he gets blocked by Ionic, but Jake is fine, and now Troll is too. The rotation's coming through in the middle area. As you can see, Lazarus starting to get involved, and with Veneni in backup too. We've got a 4v4 on this right-hand side. Troll under a bit of pressure, though, without his World Serpent being available. But the Tornado zones away some of the damage for the time being. Just keep an eye on those 2 hunters, recognizing that everybody's on the right-hand side. I'm just keeping an eye to see if Snoopy goes for a play there, as everybody else is watching on. The hunters will take a boxing match, but Lazarus in on the right, looking for the blink, and the Spirit of the Nine Winds does connect on to Variety, but Variety with the banana hell available, escapes for the time being. A battle on both sides of the map. Left-hand side, Snoopy losing this trade so far and actually loses his tower, which was whittled down already. Meanwhile, in the jungle, Scream trying to chase onto Lasbra, forced to use the ult defensively to get himself some peel.
And Jake on the back end uses his ultimate as well just to get the shield onto his team. But this is exactly what I expect to see from Renegades. When you have a lead like this, you look for that type of aggression. They open up that solo side of the map, making sure that Barracuda knows that he can play as aggressively wants as in duo lane. Things are going very well, but so far they haven't been able to find their footing. They haven't been able to just win a fight straight out. It has been just completely good picks so far. 9-0 is the slash line. 5,000 gold is the lead. Still, no towers have fallen except for that tier 1 in the duo lane in favor of Renegades. And now Gold Fury spawning soon. They could start to shift their aggression that way. It seems like Renegades are willing to just play this out as long as it takes for them to remain safely, that is.
Yeah, it seems like a battle of attrition, right? Like Renegades is just like, okay, it may go long, but we don't want to make too many mistakes and give up a lead. Credit where it's due, though. We did see a bit of action out of United in the solo lane there. I like the aggression out of Variety to try and make something happen. I've not felt that from United in the second game at all. I've not felt any aggression out of Scream. He's just really just farmed up consistently. This team, obviously no team fights just yet, but I need to see something out of United to give me some hope at the moment. Otherwise, as we were saying, this battle of attrition is just slowly going to continue in Renegades' favor.
The gold may continue in their favor, but if Renegades keep up this pace and the game goes long enough, United has a fantastic comp in the late game. 2 frontliners out of Yannick and Scream, as well as huge damage potential from Variety and Hurrywin. Snoopy just going to go his traditional tank killer build as well. So if this game does go long enough, United will eventually come online regardless.
Do you reckon that's a thought process of a United here then? Myth is like, okay, we're behind, let's hold on for the later stages, just continue to farm up, try not to lose too much, and then hopefully we can get ourselves in a position to take a fair fight, or an almost fair fight? Is that the idea they're having here?
It absolutely is. I mean, I've been in this situation as well. I'm no stranger to losing a game handedly. Now 6,000 gold in favor of Renegades. At this point, United can't truly choose a fight. Yes, they can look for picks, but at any point, if they decide to go for a 5v5 engagement, they have to know they're disfavored. So I imagine they are just going to continue farming up as safely as they can and play for that absolute late point. They might be willing to give up some of these neutral objectives as well, but Renegades hasn't really been aggressing onto it, so they're not having to give up much at all.
Fury spawning will be a primal one this time round, which will just allow them to clear out Fire Giants a little bit quicker and take less damage. Barracuda pulling it early on. It is an Oracle ward, though, from United, so they know this is happening. And a couple of members of United are now here to try and slow this down. But the zone works pretty good. Desert Fury strips it away, I feel, there from Snoopy. Venenu's ult was just too little too late, and that ultimate not being available could set up a chance for United. Variety go to the backside looking for Venenu, forcing Venenu away from the fight. Banner to Hell does great damage to Barracuda, and Barracuda should fall soon. No, he gets a huge heal. Barra's still alive. He trusted in his teammates, and now to the skies being channeled by Jake to the backside. It's a United overextended. Snoopy falls in tow, and Hurrywin and Scream have to turn tail. Pulled in his Hurrywin, knocked up and pulled around. 12 kills now for Renegades, and United have still not found a life. I can't believe Barracuda lived there.
I can't believe he lived either, but United getting that Gold Fury shouldn't have happened. I mean, Desert Fury is not the best confirmation tool. I mean, those spears are ticking for about 150 damage at this point, but you have Spear to the 9 wins on your side, and at the second Venenu dropped it, it hit nothing, so that's a huge team fight tool lost, especially considering it wasn't even used towards confirmation, but instead, Renegades come out ahead in the fight. 3 people still dead for United. Now they're grouped up on the Fire Giant.
Man, disaster when you end up getting the actual Fury and then you may lose the Fire Giant. Yannick is here though, no ultimate available for him. Both relics now on cooldown. Yannick's just trying to buy time, but after that charge away, you can see he's not going to be involved. Renegades will take this Fire Giant now uncontested. Scream's going to split push that left-hand side and at least take down a tier 1 tower for a little bit of global gold for his team. Renegades are looking good here. Barra may just find his first win in the SPL in quite a while.
I don't want to meme my boy too hard, but Ven doesn't even land the ultimate there on Fire Giant. Maybe he's just trolling around a little bit, but that is a cooldown down, not for long, but even then, it didn't even connect.
Yeah, I didn't find it, but again, it was technically... We can forgive him, right? I mean, we can give some forgiveness to pros when they make a mistake around objectives that aren't contested. You know, I guess. Do we not want to do
Yeah,
that?
I mean,
I'm fine if we don't.
It was, yeah, ideal situation. No one's even trying to pressure you out. The ultimate wasn't even necessary, but then he
Should be
misses it
practicing,
anyway.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was practice. It's all just in case there is a contention at a later point. Now 5 strong for Renegades with Fire Giant. They could siege just about anywhere they want to. It seems like they're going to group up on that long lane with a slight split push focus into that middle. There's a 3-stack from United in the middle lane, maybe a bit of a miscommunication. They know that 4 are strong on the side of Renegades in the long.
Just want to note again, Rival were lost to E United in week 1, so please don't be underestimating the strength of E United here as they take on Renegades. It just shows how well Renegades have played this series so far. And then this one is looking very stomp heavy. Awesome Jake gonna use To the Skies, but he's telegraphed. The team can see this coming to United, but what can they do about it? Well, he's in a bit too deep, gets cancelled out of his knockup, and Jake will be the first casualty of war. Variety on the front side will at least zone up for 3 members, but now he's gonna be careful. The World Serpent is gonna give chase. Variety ends up getting away with the blink, but that cost him a lot to try and slow down Renegade's aggression, and Renegades aren't done just yet. Solo Troll in the pit. Venenu finds the ultimate onto Ionic, and now the Phoenix is under threat once more.
408 got a little bit over cocky there, a little overzealous, gets it picked out immediately. SOT almost get picked up as well, but then with that fantastic ultimate, not only to peel him out, but to get the return kill. Now, I don't imagine we continue to see this Phoenix push, but there's so many towers still available that Renegades can push very safely, and United don't really have a foot to stand on to defend these tier 1s or even the tier 2s.
Yeah, patience again from Renegades, though, showing here, Myth. I mean, game 1, it was the same sort of thing. They have chances to look at the Phoenix line, but instead they'd rather, better safe than sorry, wait for some of these ultimates to come back up, and instead chip away at some of these towers. Lasbra, though, flanking round the back here. 3 members of the United are all grouped up. Blinks in, looks for Horywin. Horywin gets the beads off, but he can't Thunder Crash away in time. Now Lasbra hunted for Scream 2. Snoopy and Variety trying to help out, but all the while it's given a window for Barracuda to take down that tier 2 tower. Renegades now just 1 tier 2 tower away from just being up against the Phoenixes. In goes Jake again, though.
Jake playing in the backline finds the ultimate, not quite enough to set up for any kills, but the fight continues.
Does continue on a little bit. Solo and Troll getting low. Everyone's still alive on Renegades, so the chase should be good. Venenu now falls down. Scream giving chase. Execute isn't available just yet, but the chase on Solo Troll will buy some time. Barracuda now left alone. Renegades split up a little bit too much for my liking, but Barracuda versus 4. He takes down 1, looks for the damage onto Variety, leaping on it, gets 2. This is the Barracuda we've not seen in a while, or at least one that's on the winning side. Ionic ends up falling to Lasbra as the rotation comes in for Renegades. The chase from United to find kills gets Venenu and Solo or Troll, but it's not enough to stop the advance of Renegades, who are now looking to the left-hand side.
If the nameplates weren't on, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that that was Barracuda. Scream's going to get its ultimate forced out here. Jake already ready for it. Beads forced as well. Now the slow coming out. Lasbra chasing it out, not quite able to find it. The abilities are coming back up soon. Scream falls. That's 4 for 2 in favor of Renegades.
Ran down like a dog. Barracuda really feeling confident, and Horywin just tries to do something, and instead he just finds a quicker trip back to the fountain again. This is a good-looking Renegades team here today, playing almost like a unit. Couple of mistakes to work on, sure, at least in terms of disengaging as a unit. However, this Phoenix taking a little bit more longer than bargained for. Jake's under some pressure. Will probably fall down here. The minions doing the dirty work. I actually want to say the minions have done a little bit more work to Unite here than the players with how this one worked out in game 2. But at least Unite get their 4th kill on the board.
It looked to me there like Jake was trying to use his dash for the heal, but it wasn't quite enough. His team didn't come back, and he just looks on.
Would you leave Jake in that situation? I probably would. You know, my life is more worthwhile than a support, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking out for numero uno, and numero uno is almost never the support player. And trading your life as a support for a Phoenix, I mean, you got to go to the grave with a smile on your face. Barracuda, though, playing completely differently than we expected. I haven't seen this level of aggression and pure primal confidence out of him since the launch tournament way back when. If the nameplates weren't on, I would say that that might have been some Zapman-esque play coming out from Barra.
Well, now the Fire Giant is up and available yet again, not an enhanced one just yet, as Variety just trying to whittle down the Pyromancer, but no one else really around. Look at the left-hand side, you've got the carries of United scrapping for bits of farm there on the left to deal with fire minions, but that's just opening more of a window for Renegades to do the FG. I guess, Mifflin, there's not really... Is it the wise idea from United here not to engage this FG, or should they have tried to do something there to slow down this advance?
I mean, not going in towards that Fire Giant is not something I can fault United for. I mean, 11,000, now 12,000 gold down, as well as they had fire minions trying to flood in 2 lanes. I like what they do there. They back up the base. They try to push out mid and long lane as quick as they can so they can group up for this defense around the Phoenix on the solo. However, now Awesome Jake, his ultimate down, unfortunately, wasn't able quite to find anything good there. It's going to be very hard for them to defend. They have got so many engagement tools, Renegade that is. Solar Troll could dive in very easily with World Serpent. Lasbro, if he finds a pluck, shown very handedly that he could one-shot Hurrywind. I mean, United are going to have to play rock solid in order to defend here.
Well, middle lane Phoenix is going to continue to get pressured by the fire minions. Left-hand side is going to take a bit of time for United to feel the brunt of those for the time, for now at least, until they push up. But just keep an eye on Lasbro and those flanking opportunities. Variety, the one to keep mid busy for now. Ionic, meanwhile, on the front line, lost half his health so far. Phoenix whittled down to about 70% or so. But Barracuda leaps back away. Renegade's being very patient, waiting for the opportune moment yet again. Waiting for that ultimate, I guess, coming up from Jake one more time, and Venenu's Spirit of the Nine Winds to become available. It was used at the Fire Giant. Blinking from Jake, though, knocks up Snoopy. Soon after the fact, Solar Troll follows in. Now blinks in Variety to the backline, looking at the carries. Drums of War signal from Hurrywind, but don't do a whole lot of nothing. Neither does the ultimate of Venenu, but it does at least cancel out Hurrywind's ultimate. The World Serpent crashing from Solar Troll forces back United and creates enough distance for the Phoenix to fall down to the skies, brings back Solar Troll to the front line once more. But now all 3 Phoenixes are down for Reunited. Renegades just have to walk back and wait for the next engage.
I'm not sure if anyone saw it, but I'm so impressed by Renegade's play there. The second Variety blinks into engage, 4 members of Renegade immediately turn around and try and put as much damage as they could into him to peel off for Barracuda, immediately forcing the bat out of hell, stops that engagement in its tracks. Variety couldn't continue the fight. Scream falls in the back end. I mean, Renegades are playing so slow, it's so methodical that I imagine it's got to be completely frustrating for United because Renegades aren't opening themselves up to a single mistake.
It's definitely almost a balancing act from Renegades, though, because they don't want to make mistakes, but the longer they don't take the advantage they've got, there's more of a window of United to find a mistake they make or find a turnaround, you know? Obviously, in this game specifically, 3 Phoenixes being down, or should I say 2, at least for a moment or two now the left one respawned. A small window for United to hold on to here. I just don't hold out much hope with how this one's gone so far.
It is going to be certainly hard. I mean, historically, there's only ever been 2 comebacks with 3 Phoenixes down in the Pro League, and now Jake finding an engagement.
Impale against the wall from Snoopy slows him down. Ionic using the ult a little bit early on here to try and make sure he doesn't get CC chained. Renegades weren't really in a position to engage as a full 5-man unit just yet. Screaming well, going to push out this right-hand side. So once again, United trying to make sure they only have to deal with 2 lanes at a time, which is a wise strategy under the circumstances.
It certainly is. This Phoenix is so weak, however, they can't let Renegades move in even a little bit. If they want to defend it, they're going to have to engage outside of their own Phoenix, which is scary in of itself, especially considering the support and Hunter for United don't have their ultimates.
Blink from Jake knocks up Snoopy. No real panic, though, and instead Jake loses half his health. Drums of War sounded by Hurrywin does decent damage, but not enough to slow him down. Spirit of the Night wins! Destroys 2.5 members! Venenu connects. Who needs to connect with a Fire Giant when you can kill 2 members with 1 ultimate? Into the throne room go Renegades, and that could be that. Barracuda has broke his losing streak after almost a year.
That is an impressive play from Renegades. I mean, that was clean, clinical play both games. Very few mistakes coming out at all. This is the best that we've seen. This is what Renegades have been showing that they can do since day 1 of the SPL. Now that they've ironed out some of those kinks, no more stumbles in the late game, no more fumbles. Barracuda's squad looking oh so strong.
I'm not gonna lie, I really like this team on paper. I just wasn't sure if it would come to fruition or how long it would take them to get there. But already, looking at that game against EU United, that was a clinical game too there, Myth. There's not a whole lot EU United could really do to battle back after the start.
There wasn't much. I mean, the second that Renegades got a lead, yes, it was a very small lead for a long time. For the first 15 minutes of the game, they hovered around that 3K point. But the second those Gold Furies started to respawn, the second they started making those towers fall, the gold lead just continued to spiral out of control. And that clinical play, although was holding them back in the early game slightly, made sure that there was no stumbles in the late. I mean, that is so absolutely frustrating, I have to imagine, for United, having to play against someone playing that slowly and just losing the entire time.
Very methodical, honestly, from Renegades. And for me, I'm going to say it. I didn't think I was going to have to say it this split, but Jake got MVP from me. I think his performance on that Horus in both games was really stand out. We'll see what the desk has to say after this set one, though, and then we'll get ourselves ready for set two.
Strong performance out of Jake on the Horus, and big performance from Barracuda on the Hu Yi as well. And if you want to jump into game and try to play like Barracuda, pick up that Hu Yi. Check out the new unlimited tier 5 skin available right now. Go into the Grim Omens event, select buy all, and you'll get, 15 other skins, a bunch of other rewards, and plenty of stuff on top of it. So check out the Grim Omens event. Check out that new tier 5 unlimited Hu Yi skin. Might be hard to play like Barracuda, but you can look good trying. Goremiser's still with me. He's going to talk about this big win for the Renegades, Gore.
Yeah.
MVP over to Awesome Jake. Do you agree with Hindu?
I think so. It's so hard to determine because everybody was playing at a completely different level. But I think that Horus brought in a lot that you can't glance over. That being said, if Vin had hit maybe a couple more of those ultimates that we saw him go a little wide, we maybe could have pushed him into the conversation a little bit higher. And also, have to say, this one up towards the top, Lasbar was 8-0-9. Like, you cannot underestimate how strong he was. And that's after we saw a lot of bans in the pick and ban phase focused against him. I mean, they were banning out his Pele. They banned out a few junglers there on the side of United to stop that exact thing from happening. And so it was huge for Lasbar to not only get something that maybe wasn't prioritized in United's eyes, but then still bring it to him and be a part of 17 kills.
And you could almost tell the Renegades game plan, especially after it started out so well for them. Remember, Awesome Jake gets first blood and then affects the next 2 kills. The first 3 kills in this game affected all 3 by Awesome Jake. But more importantly, I think, Gore, they're spread out, 1 in the jungle, 1 in the mid lane. Barracuda gets some experience and impact on those kills as well. And they basically told SOT in that solo lane, hey man, if you just stay alive and don't get ganked out and don't die, the rest of these lanes are far and away ahead. And it was finally, I think, even more so than game 1, a complete game plan here from the Renegades, and probably the cleanest I've seen them yet.
And it just, again, every member showed up, and I'm happy we have some Barra highlights in here because there were moments where he was diving in to fight. It was actually this exact fight where he just kept going. He didn't stop. He didn't know how to pull back. And it gave me some memories because when I first started watching SMITE, and guys, this is going to be in like 2013. I think I followed SMITE game in 2014, 2013, somewhere around there. I went to the launch tournament, like watching like the Zap Barra matchup. Well, it was the thing at the time, and it's still kind of the thing. But I feel like in the last couple of years, you've seen maybe Barra fade, not necessarily away from that, but it hasn't been as aggressive. It hasn't been as asserting as it was that game. And so that was something I haven't gotten to see in a while, and it was a very refreshing take. I can tell you, Katie, Barra is one of her favorite players, so I know she'll be happy being able to watch this Renegade squad doing really well. And Dave, just looking at them as a team right now, this is not someone to glance over. I think if you are in the SPL,
I agree.
You need to do your homework or else this team is going to take you down.
Well, things are going to get even more muddled in the standings now, Gore, with Renegades bumping up to 1-2. United will bump down to 1-2. Of course, it's only through 2 weeks. Just now, a couple of teams playing their third game, but that middle of the pack, top, bottom, I mean, everything is still really up for grabs at this point. But I got to admit, I mean, you look at these standings, it's so hard to tell, I think, where so many of these teams stand. And it's going to take the first-time matchup from Team A versus Team B to really start to answer a lot of those questions for us. One final game today, though. Obey Alliance up against Radiance. Going to be a tough one, I think, for Obey. But maybe some final thoughts on this one, Gore. I mean, look towards E United. Obviously, a tough couple of games for them after what was a roaring start. Big win over Rival. How concerned are you with where E United are right now?
Honestly, it's interesting, right? Because it feels like, and when you look at the lineup, you look at their roster, things should be coming together. And after a very, very monumental win, I would say, over Rival, I think realistically what we're seeing is that it might not be E United being at fault. It might just be that everybody in the SPL has kind of dialed things up to 11. They're bringing it in Season 7, Dave, and as of right now, you can't count anyone out, whether it is ex-world champions or if it's a new squad coming through. They all have something to prove here.
And Renegade's one of those teams that had a lot of promise in their first couple of games, just now finally getting themselves the win. We talked a lot about Barracuda, and we have him standing by, the big winner from set number 1.
Agreed. The big winner from set number. Look at that Cheshire grin that you got going on. Barra, May 16th, 2019 was the last time you won against an SPL team. That's almost a year, dude. How are you still in the Pro League?
I stream, and
Yeah.
that's I'm like someone else in the SPL, and that's why I'm here. No, I'm kidding.
That's how it goes.
I don't know. I just hate losing so much, and after last year, I never wanted to deal with that ever again. And then building this roster was the most I don't know. I'm just surprised we're already winning. Honestly, because I thought we were going to start and just lose and lose and lose, and obviously our objectives are shaky. Some of our team fights are shaky, and sometimes you got a lot of stuff to work on, and we still have a lot of stuff to work on. And the fact that we're already winning games and making them look kind of clean. I mean, we messed up a lot.
Kind of clean.
We're
they were sat at 0 for a long time in that kill column. I think Jake kind of felt sorry at one point.
Okay. Jake literally was like, "I'm gonna press 4 here," and then flew into the Phoenix. And it was just we're almost just like, no, Jake, slow it down. Just press the brakes a little. Just take your time. We can win this game. And that's what we were doing. We, for the 3,000 gold lead for a while, we were just like, okay, let's just farm this out. We have a scaling team comp here. There's no need to, look for over-aggressive plays. We just play our game. We look for gold for right when I finished Executioner, we did gold. And then we just started basically pressing the gas at that point, because before then it's just 50-50. If I'm tanking gold, I'm gonna take a lot of damage. Jake's gonna have to heal me. It's just sketchy. There's no reason to make it messy. We just keep it clean.
I mean, I felt like coming into this set as well. We just saw last week E United beat Rival. Were you kind of a little bit oh, here we go again? This is another up and coming team that we're gonna potentially struggle with. Is that what you kind of expected going into this one?
I don't know. I don't know what I expected, honestly. It's hard to kind of judge where we are, I think, even being on the team, because I think we're sick, and it's hard to... I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this, because SPL is just completely different than scrims. So whenever everything slows down at objectives, we don't have that practice yet. We don't have that cohesion yet. So it's really hard to get that practice in scrims. And that's why, in my opinion, a lot of our objectives look so messy and so all over the place, because we're just we don't have that cohesion yet. We don't have that unit. I think we are still playing really well individually. We're still making plays. I think all of our laners are sick, but we just need that cohesion. We need that shot calling kind of authority that people listen to and that people respect, and we're all on the same page. Because I think it was game 1, we're getting picked up their duo tier 2. We were all going to push mid, and then game 2, we're still making a lot of misplays even in the late game. So we just need to focus on keeping things clean, because I think individually we are better than a lot of other teams in SPL. We just need to bring that cohesion together, and that's what our main focus is. And Ro's doing a great job bringing us all together and making sure everyone's on the same page. Whenever we go over picks and bans, whenever we watch SPL games, everyone's focused, everyone's trying to learn and work together as a team.
It's just cool to see your smile on your face again, Barrett, for at least 2 seconds anyway. Congratulations on the W today. We're looking forward to seeing you in the future. For now, it's time for us to get ready for set 2 of the day.
Thank you.
by myself.
Welcome back, everybody, for our second and final set of the day. And you just saw our chair sponsor, Maxonomic, here in the SPL. And nowadays, more than ever, it's important to stay comfortable in these times when we're going to be spending a lot of time in our seats at our desk. Maxonomic, $50 off if you go to needforseatusa.com. Use the code SMITEMAX. Customize your chair, team logo, gamer tag, Gormiser's face, whatever you'd like. Especially in gaming, when usually if you're worse, it's because your gaming chair is worse. So Maxonomic, needforseatusa.com, and then code SMITEMAX. Gormiser, the man whose face we all want stitched on our chair, with me to talk about Obey versus Radiance. Gore, and this is a true maybe top versus bottom matchup when you kind of look at how the first couple of weeks have played out.
Yeah, Radiance, I feel like have taken the league by storm, and this is something to be said. Normally you look at teams like this that kind of form together and kind of question, like, there's a lot of huge names, but are they going to be able to mesh together the way people think? And so far the answer has been yes, and it's been a very resounding, loud, screaming from the back yes. Whereas Obey haven't been able to pick it up, and honestly, Dave, I don't know if I can call the set between Knights and Obey yesterday more than anything other than Obey getting dismantled. Like, it just from the get-go, they didn't have a grip on it. It slipped out of their hand very fast. If they want a hope against Radiance here, I think a lot of it's in the first few minutes. They need to control the pace of the game, or else Radiance is just going to be able to run away the same way the Knights did.
I agree, and it's tough because I think when you look at Obey, their losses have been pretty handy. But it's not without, some bright spots here and there. I do truly think that Obey have a couple spots where they can maybe build and start to improve themselves. I think
for sure.
Ducky in that solo lane has been a bright spot for them. I think Wowie in the Hunter role as well. I think those are a couple of guys that Obey can maybe start to game plan around, and certainly haven't been, outclassed or anything like that. So I'm curious to see from game to game, week to week, if Obey maybe change up strategy, because there are absolutely players on this team that can compete at the highest level.
And I think credit where credit's due. The teams they've lost to, you had to look at Sanguine, who right now has kind of taken the league by storm, at least so far, and the former or current reigning world champs, right? So it's like you haven't necessarily had easy matchups coming into it, but they did look a little bit stronger against Sanguine than they did against the Knights yesterday. When they were up against Sanguine, they, 20, 25 minutes in, they're still even, kind of pushing Sanguine to the limits, and then maybe one team fight just doesn't quite go the way they want, and Sanguine kind of escalated their team play and take the game. Yesterday, that team play was a little missing for me from Obey, so if they can just snap out of whatever was there yesterday, kind of bring it in with a fresh mentality today, I think they can help control some of the pace against Radiance. And again, a lot of it, I think, is going to be pertinent in that first 10 minutes, just to make sure Radiance don't all of a sudden run away with the game.
Starting off strong, so important here for Obey, and you bring it up. Talk about a brutal start. Sanguine into the Knights, and now into Radiance, a team that has looked near unstoppable. A lot of people would argue are the best-looking team in the league right now in the game. Do you tend to agree with that sentiment? What's it going to take to maybe upend these guys?
Honestly, if they lose 3 sets in a row, then maybe you start to question, okay, maybe they're not number one, right? But Cyclone Spin's been playing so clean. Big Man Tings has actually shown up to be relatively large for this team as well, which is like he's the one that if you look at it, maybe quote unquote the weak link for them, and that's saying something considering how potent he has been. I think he actually had the highest average damage of every player through Season 6's. He's still and has always been potent. It's just interesting to see where exactly they might break apart. A lot of the issues people will tend to see with teams like this are more or less going to be communication issues and how they mesh together. It's never the player's skill that's in question. And right now, Radiance just seem to be hitting on the exact note they need to. Adapting's doing fine. Again, I'm going to say his name a second time because it needs to be said a second time. Cyclone Spin has been insane, and if you don't shut down that duo lane, then, well, guess what? Late game, I know exactly where that Hunter's going to be, and it's running through anyone that stands in his way.
And I think that's what makes me nervous about this matchup, Gore, is because I sort of brought up a couple guys on Obey that I think could propel them maybe forward into more success, and their matchups against Radiance, their lane opponents, aren't easy. I mean, Benji in the solo lane where Ducky will have to pair up, and then Cyclone Spin for Wowie. It doesn't get much more difficult than going up against those guys. So I think it's going to be a tough one. Radiance, fan favorites voting wise in the SMITE client going into this one as well. I'm curious where ban priority will end up here. Obey looking towards the jungle early on and maybe a flex there with the Kamazots, but Thor first overall banned out, especially with adapting on Radiance. Doesn't surprise me one bit.
And what I love about Radiance, this is something I feel like we don't get to talk about this too often because of how little we get to see this variance, but I mean, they banned On Her and Cirquette, which admittedly both have been potent for Obey. Wowie's On Her has been very strong, and inbound on that Cirquette is insanely potent at being able to get aggressive, get into your face, and cause a lot of disruption. So the bans make sense, but think of everything that's going to be open right now because of it. Hercules has been very big in some of these bans. You have Odin. You will have Merlin still available. A lot of these mages still at the forefront. So they get rid of something that is going to cause some trouble for them, like the Persephone, but they've left open enough strong picks that they're going to be able to scoop up a couple right here.
And Jormungandr first overall is what Obey will scoop up for themselves. I mean, Yorm in the solo lane has started to become a pro favorite. Plenty of safety with that World Serpent ultimate can potentially bully out lanes, change around team fights as well. So I don't mind them putting Ducky on that Jormungandr. I think it's a good, strong, as well as potentially safe pick, depending on the situation. Merlin and Ullr, Gore, that's been kind of a favorite 1-2 punch, maybe a flavor of the week, if you will, here for a lot of these pro teams.
Well, what is it? Last week we got the resurgence of Hu Yi. This week we're getting Ullr a lot. And I can't complain. I like seeing the fact that there's a huge versatility in hunters that are coming out into the duo lane, especially because what you are getting out of them, admittedly at the end of the day, is all very similar, right? On Her has high damage, has a stun capability. Ullr, stun capability. Hu Yi, stun capability. Like, a lot of CC that's going to be coming out of them. Because you're looking at them, yes, still as your carry, but having the ability to either A, win a 1v1, self-peel, or set up your mid laner. Like, whichever one you want to put it in as a column, it's perfect to have them come through. They mesh a little bit better with the team. And right now, depending on what you go with him, Sobek's been kind of, again, another flavor of the week that's maybe been paired with this Ullr. But it can become a very fast kill lane there for Radiance if Obey don't pay too much attention depending on how these next couple of bans go.
A good stat, I think, worthwhile to look at. Bans against Radiance Thor 100% of the time. Nobody wants adapting to pick up Thor against them. There is some jungle presence for Radiance in the bans, though, as well. Taking the Cirquette, the Daji, now the Awilix away from Weekend. That's going to have to bump him down his own personal tier list maybe a little bit here. And Radiance have already gotten that Hoonbats. That's such a strong pickup in the jungle, I think, and Obey are going to have to look elsewhere.
And they take away, I mean, so much. Again, Cirquette is something that can flex very well for Obey. Could go to Weekend, could go to Inbound. And either one is going to be very potent on it. But when you start to strip it away, I mean, yesterday we saw Weekend pick up a Susano, but it didn't quite go the way they wanted. There's still something in his wheelhouse. Still a ton of assassins that are open for him. But a lot of the top picks that have been kind of dominating right now are off the board. So he's going to have to reach even deeper into his pockets or just kind of run, maybe the salty run back, I guess, in a way, and try to make that Susano work.
I'm curious, though, Gore. I mean, with Yorm locked in, Sobek as well, we have seen some Sobek in the solo lane. Is there any world where we maybe see a flip-flop of Sobek in the solo, Yorm in that support Guardian position, or are you pretty confident that the Sobek goes support?
I'm pretty confident only because of all of the supports, of all the Guardians in the game, Yorm just doesn't feel as good over in the duo lane. It's a very weird feeling, but like he fits perfectly in the solo lane. It's very similar to Cerberus. Cerberus can technically be a Guardian, but he just feels better if you throw him off in the solo lane.
Ooh.
And so I expect this to still try to set up the Hu Yi, get things going for him over there, and honestly just hope for the best.
Well, the quick and easy question is, do you think Obey have kept pace with what Radiance have drafted? Because Radiance have a strong 5. Do you like what Obey have as well?
I like what Obey have, but there's a lot of middle ground there, specifically coming down for the Raven. I need to see how it works.
Obey searching for their first win. Radiance trying to avoid their first loss. Game 1, let's kick it off.
It's opposite ends of the spectrum, isn't it, Dulcin? Finch and Aggro here on the cast as we move to game 1 between Obey and Radiance. And strangely enough, no Odin getting picked up there after those bans. No Horus either after that really strong performance he had back in set 1 Aggro. Instead, it's going to be a Roar on this Ardio pick that he's been playing quite a lot of here in Season 7 and looking pretty good on.
It's just an Aurora god through and through, right? It's a god that he can just get in there and affect team fights effectively with CC. He's going to bring good damage. It lets him be in your face all the time with a dash and a stun and a cripple. Aurora has been playing RDO basically since she was released and has always looked very, very good on it. And in this game, I think it could really give some problems to Wowie on this Ho Yi. If Cyclone Spin can make Wowie use that jump, which should be pretty easy on Uller, just an axe throw will do it for you most of the time. Aurora's long-range route is going to be the real key. I know when we think about RDO, we think of the cripple field, and that's a huge part of her kit, but I also think of her as a god that really punishes immobile enemy gods because of that long-range route. She's great against gods that don't have options in those moments, and that isn't really prevalent in Obey's composition here, but there's so much on Obey or on Radiance that's going to force you to use that jump that then that route will basically act like it executes in some situations.
Well, to speak of immobility, as Cyclone Spin gets plugged in but doesn't seem too deterred, we've seen a lot of this horrific emblem, I feel like. Maybe we can't talk about it yet. This is trouble for Inbound. It can't be another game where he gets first blooded, and yet it is. Radiance on the board here already, and he's got to make sure he's being more careful. But I'll let you, if you want to talk about that first blood, you can, or if you like my horrific setup, take that path.
Well, I mean, horrific is usually good in fights like that, where you're going to be brawling in the wave, and it makes it really hard to use your minions effectively because you're just so slow. But when you're going to let the enemy hit 2 first, that's going to be a problem for you, and that's exactly what Aurora and Cyclone do. Look at the way that Aurora and Cyclone position during that fight. Inbound finds the pluck, and they don't run away. They just make sure their abilities are landing on the opposition, but also on the enemy wave, because they know they only need a creep or 2 to hit that level 2 mark. And as soon as they hit it, Inbound's just dead. And that's exactly what I'm talking about with RDO. You use your movement ability, she starts life tapping you, and you're toast. There's just nothing you can do.
And this is why I'm so glad we're seeing the return to duo lane, because I think people kind of forget that Cyclone Spin and Aurora are such a good pairing. You just didn't see them as much anymore when they were kind of spread around and Aurora was doing so much of the shenanigans in the jungle. But Aurora, I mean, in real life too, really does stick by Cyclone Spin, man. He was really, really insistent on wanting to play with him here again this year, and for good reason. They're a great pairing, but you're seeing it materialize on the battlefield as well. Good coordination. Inbound and Wowie get a bit too comfortable there in lane and get punished, and Aurora and Cyclone Spin take over into that level 2 first. And this is part of Obey's problem, man. It's not just that they struggle later on in the game, but they oftentimes don't start off on particularly good notes.
Agreed. I think that they've been picking a lot of late game compositions and they just haven't gotten there effectively a lot so far this year. This composition feels a little bit more early game focused. Not super early game, but you don't need to hit 35 minutes for your comp to work when you've got a Raven and a Sobek that's going to set yourselves up for some good success. And I like that a lot more, but they just can't afford to get first blooded that early in the duo lane, because how many games have we seen so far this year that are just won and lost in the duo lane in the way the duo lane performances are done? I think that it's been far more this year than basically all of last year at this point, because it just has been a true duo lane. I think game 1 of the first set today of Renegades versus United is a good example of that, where Bara and Jake just played lights out, and both Ionic and Snoopy had really poor performances in lane and in team fights. I think that that's going to have to be a focal point for a lot of teams moving forward here in Season 7. I just feel like it's exactly situations like that where you have to know that they're going to hit 2 off of a minion. So if we pluck here, and then I'm without a pluck, unless we can kill Aurora right away or force him weak enough that he can't step up with the level advantage, because they're on our tower line, we cannot play aggressively in that position. I just feel like it's been a lack of respect or a lack of prep for these duo lanes, because it's not just inbound. This has happened to a lot of really, really good teams. This has been
Vote got destroyed, didn't he, the other day?
Exactly.
I mean,
that was a perfect example of it. Yeah, you expect that to happen a little bit better, and it just hasn't quite yet, and that's been surprising to me so far.
I think that there might be a bit of growing pain, sort of getting used to this 2v2 dynamic, because I mean, I think you could argue it's been a full year since we've seen it this consistently at this point now. And a lot of the pros have been talking about it. It's been a while since they've been playing at this level consistently too. So there is kind of a lot of just getting back into the groove, I think. It's just that all these games do matter, right? And the teams that came in ready for minute 1 are the ones benefiting. Right now that's looking like Radiance and Sanguine, who are up at the top of the standings. But we know everyone else certainly can catch up. They just got to make sure they're doing it a bit sooner rather than later.
These points really matter with this format this year. You really cannot afford to just give up some early games in the season because, we're still trying to find our footing. It's not too big of a deal. The way that the point system works now, where you get points based on your finish in Split 1, and world seeding is determined by the amount of total points you've earned throughout the year, means the difference between finishing 6th and 5th could be very, very relevant on making it to the World Championship and finding yourself in a seed that you like.
Exactly right. I believe it. I mean, we're getting way ahead of ourselves now, but I think it's only the top 6 that end up making it into that placement stage towards the end of this, that playoff stage too. So there's a lot that matters from these very first few matches. That's why I've been so impressed with these teams that have come in and looked comfortable right from the beginning. I mean, I wonder if that's part of what's hurting Rival. I mean, I don't think Twig looked 100% comfortable right when they first started, but he has looked better in their second matchup. It just, you got to make sure you're ready from that very first moment, because if you're not, the other teams will be.
And it's about Twig specifically. I think that role swapping is a dangerous game whenever early points matter this much in a season. But the hope is that you're gonna be so good later on down the line that it's worth it.
Well, Weekend getting aggressive, and he's got to on this Robin pick. Good positioning there from Benji, but he is still in trouble. The Jormungandr from Ducky will not be deterred, and he finds himself a kill, gets Obey on the board after they gave up first blood on the left-hand side earlier. Adapting here too, but Inbound made the rotation to keep him zoned out. Obey Alliance should be able to make it out of this, but Aurora's aggressive blinking pass for Ducky.
Adapting still wants to get in there and use that Fear No Evil, but Ducky slows him down with that Venom. That's a beautiful play from Weekend and Ducky. It is not often that someone gets hit by all 3 charges of Jormalt when they know it's coming. It's not in the middle of a hectic team fight. You don't see that very often, and Ducky was accurate there. He was decisive. That's something that I think that catches Jorm players in a bad spot, is that they hold that too long, and once they have time to juke, you're in real trouble. Ducky's using that emerge knockup to push Benji into his next shot. That was masterful use of that World Serpent.
And Ducky clearly comfortable. I mean, you heard them talking about on the desk that he's been one of the few bright spots for Obey here around the start of this season. I think I agree with Dolson and Gormizer on that point. Ducky did have some struggles in their most recent set, but for the most part, he's remained even in that matchup. It's just that by the time he rotates over, what I really feel like is holding Obey back is this 3v3. The Weekend Wolfie inbound synergy has not been there just yet. But when Ducky rotates over, a lot of the times things are already kind of out of reach of what he can change in terms of his solo lane impact.
Agreed, and that's why this change up from Obey to maybe camp Ducky, get him ahead, and let him be a factor earlier on in the game makes a lot of sense to me. I think that Ducky has definitely looked like Obey's best player through the first 2 weeks or so here. So why not try and set him up for more success? Now, I don't know that Jorm is really the hard carry god that you want to put that guy on, but it's certainly safe, and even if these first few ganks don't work, we're not going to throw the game off of it. Ducky can still be an impact player regardless of the outcome of these.
I do feel like this is Yorm's kind of ideal early game scenario, though, when he can build the Jade Emperors into the physical solo laner and the physical jungler, right? And it gives him such a big power spike over there, it's so hard to kill him. And ironically, to talk about Weekend spending time over there, I feel like when Weekend was kind of at his most successful was when he spent a bunch of time in solo lane helping his current opposition in Cyclone Spin, right? And that team found a ton of success. I think that was around like Season 2 and Season 3. So I wonder if maybe there is something to Weekend doing some ganking over there, maybe getting Ducky ahead and playing aggressive. A Cyclone Spin makes an early rotation over to mid and gets aggressive.
No fear from him, and a lot of fear from Obey Alliance. I mean, they don't know where a whole lot of people are from Radiance, and you think that Cyclone Spin's doing that because he had backup coming. He didn't have that much, but can't really fault Obey for playing it fairly safe around this Uller for Cyclone Spin. And I love what he's doing right here, forcing Wowie back off this wave. There's nothing for him to take right now. As soon as that purple spawns, he might hard shove and give this wave over. As soon as it does, he backs up. But now you just sit here again and wait until Wowie has to step up on you, and you can try and full combo him. Just one axe is going to force his beads, because a full combo basically kills Wowie at this point. Cyclone has his 1 and his 3 nearly maxed, I'd imagine. His Transcendence is done. He does a lot of damage right now. You really can't eat a full combo from Uller at this point.
No, and Wowie very nearly in danger of it, does avoid that axe and a hail of arrows, so he is able to reposition. But I do want to talk a bit about Wolfie, who, this is an important start of the season for him, right, as he took some time off, and I think there were a couple of questions about him on his way out, too, and now he wants to come back in and show he can play at this SPL level. Maybe we'll have to wait to talk about it, though. Obey going for a sneaky Gold Fury, dropping the Sun. Cyclone Spin is nearby as well. The Tycho Drums has already been used to try and keep him zoned out. That was clean from Obey as they steal the objective away.
Well done, but it cost them 4 ultimates, so now they have to be wary of any engagements that Radiance is going to put on their plate, because that's easy communication there for Cyclone Spin. They used everything. He probably didn't see the Robin ult, but he might have heard it on that Gold Fury, which is what made him check it in the first place. Even if he doesn't, that's still 3 ultimates that he knows for a fact are down. No surprise to see Radiance immediately into the enemy jungle, knowing that those ults are on cooldown.
But this is good for me, because that feels like, this Robin pick for Weekend, which is something that can kind of be combative in the early game, a lot of the times picked as a bridge pick. This early focus on the Gold Fury and willing to commit all the ultimates, it feels like Obey are trying to solve the issue that we saw from them in their other matches, which is that they fell behind early too often. I think inbound's aggression, and it has been a problem, it looks better if you're not down 5,000 gold all the time. So Obey coming in with a slight lead could be a bit of what they need anyway, just to kind of facilitate their own gameplay style.
I think this is the first time Obey has been proactive, healthy proactive in any game so far. They've had games where they jam it down a lane in the early game, but it usually doesn't turn out too well for them, or at least it hasn't so far. But this is the game where they are making good decisions, but good aggressive decisions. It's a really telegraphed gank on that right-hand side that just works through sheer brute force from Weekend and Ducky. They played that really, really well. This Gold Fury pull is played perfectly. It's zoned away by Wolfie's ultimate. Cyclone knows he can't really full commit. Wolfie secures nicely with some help from inbound on that lurking in the waters. This is the best Obey has looked, without a doubt.
Adapting has been a bit quiet, but inbound might be in a tricky spot. Lurking in the waters, Weekend comes over to Bruno Evil is defensive from adapting. The charge prey cannot land. Now inbound stuck, but Ducky creates further space. Aurora's quite low, and RDO can be a bit immobile. She doesn't have the dash. Wowie is the one that punishes on the Ho-Yi, but is quite low, has to retreat, and they want to try and keep surging forward. They know Ducky's have to pop up out of the ground sooner rather than later, but Adapt doesn't have the ultimate anymore. Just that slow he drops onto Ducky, and unfortunately it's Cyclone Spin that ends up low. Good damage from Wolfie puts him down in dangerous threshold. They get the kill in the Cyclone Spin, but they end up losing Ducky too.
A 2-for-1 in Obey Alliance's favor, so you like their odds right now. Looks like they defended their red buff at the exact same time. Really, really great rotation over from Ducky. He is there a full 15 seconds before Benji, and he's really the difference maker in that team fight, because Radiant's back up and Obey surge forward, and you're thinking it's not looking great for them, but it's because Ducky's on the way, and he makes a big impact. Looks like Benji has found himself in a really bad spot. No ultimates available, but he's a little bit short of rage and the transform, and so he'll get picked off trying to proxy between Tier 1 and Tier 2.
Yeah, that's odd there from Benji. in terms of his positioning. I mean, it's like you said, right? He was a bit later to that fight, still wanted to get something off of being on this side of the map, having walked all the way over here. He does not have teleport. He has the Blink and the Thorn, so on his way back, looked for some farm, I suppose, and got punished. That means now Obey have a good opportunity to punish on the right side of the map, and they want Pyromancer, and no one is coming over to contest it. And it's not just aggro that Obey have been more proactive, but hasn't it felt like Radiance have kind of been on the back foot? We have not seen Adapting make an aggressive play yet on this Unbots. I don't believe. They kind of been letting Obey come to them, but not having great answers.
Yeah, this has been tough for them to find these windows to be aggressive. Because of the proactivity of Obey Alliance. Adapting has really been playing these Wheelix picks, all centered around the ability to get these setups from either Benji or Aurora or something like that. And this composition just doesn't do that. And I think that Radiance's comp scales better into the late game around this Merlin and the Hun Bats.
Sure.
But Obey's composition scales really well into the late game as well. It's not like theirs is really a big detriment. It's not like they're really far behind come late game. So Obey is really leveraging the fact that they've got this Raven and this Sobek that can be really aggressive early on. And Radiance has just not been the ones determining exactly where the fights are happening every single time. And the times that they do try it, like on that red buff invade, Obey is there in force with numbers. Ducky is prepared and they're early. And that's really been critical for Obey. It looks like they're reacting ahead of schedule, and they're also being proactive, and that's been impressive so far this game.
It has been, but I want to make sure we don't get, too far kind of away from the way that this is going so far here in this game. Doug, if we can see the charts, I mean, it's really not that big of a lead for Obey in terms of the golden experience. It's 1,400 gold, 1,000 experience. So even though this has looked like their best early game so far, which I agree with, it's certainly not blowing a Radiance out of the water or anything like that. This is good from them, but certainly not going to be enough. We are only through chapter 1, I think, of a successful game for them. They got to turn the page and make sure they can connect this into more stuff in this mid-game once they start to approach that, and then beyond. It's been a good start, though, for sure.
Without a doubt. And I think that their comp really does well at this point in the game. We're out of the laning phase a little bit. We're starting to group up. 4-on-4s, 5-on-5s are going to be a little bit more impactful and a little bit more prevalent. And I like what Obey has in these 4-on-4s and 5-on-5s. They've got good CC. They've got excellent damage, solid AoE. Initiation is good between Inbound and Ducky. And even Weekend might be able to find an engagement if he can. Radiance is a little bit more counter-engage style. Benji wants to be able to blink in and find an ultimate right as Obey is going on their backline.
Oni Fury down half already. Obey have already gotten one Fury without Radiance contesting. What about a second? It looks as though Radiance know about this one, though. They've got a ward inside the pit. It looks Fury low. Obey do manage to secure it, but they've got some low health bars inbound in a tough position. Ducky lurking off to the side, but this disengage is clean. This is what I'm talking about. This start to the game was good from Obey, and now they're connecting it to more clean plays to further pull ahead.
And this is not the first time that we've seen this in particular from Adapting, where he just decides that he needs some solo farm right now. I'm heading to the right-hand side, and I'm getting something. They get the tier 1 tower over there. He probably dropped that enemy blue buff, or maybe it hadn't been up on respawn. But he gets a lot of farm. He gets over there. He finishes his Erendite. But Obey are just ready to go on when and where where's Adapting? Right side. He obviously can't get here in time. Let's pull gold and really force a 5-on-4, and they win it, and they don't try and get too much afterwards because they expend a lot. That's good shot calling from Obey Alliance in that moment. But again, it's not like they're blowing the game wide open. In fact,
not at all.
Radiance having split the map and getting a tower and stripping away some jungle and Adapting a lot of solo farm, he gets a lot of XP that actually puts Radiance ahead in total XP. The goal, that wasn't a Gold Fury, it was an Oni Fury, and this is where Oni Fury is at its least impactful, when there's not a lot of pressure on the map and Radiance is very free to back up and just knock down those waves. That isn't a big give by Radiance. I think if that's a Gold Fury, or maybe even a Primal Fury, Adapting probably rotates over, but knowing it's Oni in a game state like this, it's really, I think that farm that Adapting got and the tower Adapting got on the right-hand side is probably just more valuable.
I think I agree with that statement. Radiant's still in a perfectly fine spot. And as you said, they are going to be moving into a late game where they feel pretty potent. Any team fight, I think, in the late game that has Fear No Evil in it is one that's hard to discount. The thing is, we have seen from Raijin lately that he is a really potent late game mage. He chunks. So does Merlin, absolutely. But I think that Obey have an even stance in terms of their fight. It's just that if I have to base it on who's been executing better lately, that's been Radiance, right? So I just feel like I wish Obey had been able to set themselves up a bit better to come up with some kind of advantage rather than toe-to-toe. But this is still better than what we've seen from them, so it's hard to get discouraged. Just Wolfie has to use beads to get away from the Fear No Evil. That's adapting's Blink and ult on cooldown, and all he got were the beads.
But that's still a good initiation because Wolfie now is in trouble to something as simple as his jump is down because Big Man Tings threw out a blizzard and he jumped away, and then Aurora shows up and starts rooting him from a long range. He has to ult in that moment or else he's going to get insta-killed. Adapting, not hesitating at all, trying to get those beads. And if he would have found that Sacred Monkey Toss, he probably would have killed Wolfie or at least forced Aegis and or Ultimate because he could have followed that leap really, really easily. But quick enough beads from Wolfie make sure that Sacred Monkey doesn't land.
Pyromancer will go down for Obey. Radiance again not really contesting the objective. And so far, that's what Obey has really done well. I mean, if you kind of factor in, they've gotten 2 Furies and I believe 2 Pyromancers at this point, at the very least that last one, then I'm a bit surprised it's not more. Radiance really have done a good job of kind of sitting back, adapting in particular of power farming. And you mentioned it before, this is something that adapting's been criticized for. I really think that Season 6 in particular, where we saw a lot of that from adapting, where he kind of waited around on the fringes, spent a lot of time in the jungle, kind of biding his time for his moments. The thing was, he was pretty good at picking those moments. So if you're Obey, you got to make sure you're being mindful of kind of where adapting is and what he might be setting up for lately. Even though he's been quiet throughout the early game, he could pull that trigger anytime.
And he's only getting stronger on the Hun Bats. I think you're going to start to see the difference in effectiveness between a Raven and a Hun Bats at these points in the game. I mean, Hydra's Lament now means that adapting wins the 1v1 as long as his ult is up against anybody in the entire game. I don't know that he has enough pen to be able to kill level 15 Sobek. His inbound's farmed very well. He's got a 2-level lead over Aurora right now. But any squishy with that Hydra's and the Hun Bats passive working perfectly together, it's basically the exact same passive, you're gonna have a tough time up against this Hun Bats.
Not just him, this Uller as well. Cyclone's been building what we've seen more from these Ullers lately, which is a lot of the pin tree, Crusher, Jotuns, and Titans often, and then like Heartseeker right there in the middle. And it's just pure ability based. They don't even build lifesteal a lot of the time, these builds, and these Ullers are swinging in the late game. They can even still get lifesteal from the Axe stance, obviously, as well. I like where Cyclone Spin's going with this.
Me too. I've been playing with this build a decent amount as of late. And it feels really, really good to use because it makes you a lot harder to dive. Uller is a character that is notoriously hard or easy to get on top of and focus, particularly in the late game. But with Jotun's Wrath and this Transcendence, because of the Uller passive of using abilities and Axe stance reduces bow stance cooldowns and vice versa, you're able to just throw your abilities all over the place and jump like crazy.
Gold Fury, and it is a Gold Fury this time, is down to about half, and they're still pulling it. They reset it a bit as the ultimate comes out from adapting. That does force the CC immunity out from Ducky, who I believe picked up the beads. In goes Benji trying to get aggressive. Obey, though, have grabbed the Gold Fury, and Radiance want to keep up the aggression. It's going to be tough, though, to keep this chase. The disengage from Obey has been so clean all day long, and it looks like they're going to make yet another clean escape, but Radiance are still grouped, moving in towards mid, maybe a tier 1 tower to try and punish.
It feels like Obey is playing keep away this whole game. I mean, every time Radiance is like, okay, we're ready to fight, Obey is like, no, we don't want to. We're going to back up. We've got plans, and we've got something we got to go and do. And Radiance has been really itching to take fights around these objectives, and really, both Ducky and Inbound have done a great job at keeping Radiance at bay without overextending. It is really easy to overextend against a composition that has Uller and Merlin and Hun Bats, because those are all CCs that can catch you out and put you in bad spots, even as frontliners. And Obey's frontline has done a great job of making sure they're staying at home, they're not going too far out, but they're creating enough space for Obey to use those ultimates. Sunbreaker buys you space. That Tycho Drums buys you space. And it's also giving you DPS on the objective at all times. And Benji hasn't been able to blink in at the right times to find these initiations. Aurora is really not going to be able to do that same thing that something like a a Horus can and set you up to insta-kill a frontliner. It's a little bit more long-term engagements, bit of disruption. He's going to provide a little bit of damage himself, but Aurora is not playing the, okay, we're ready to kill this guy instantly sort of character on RDO. It's, I'm going to root this guy eventually. I'm going to get there, but hopefully they don't have anything to interrupt me or get away. This composition just isn't really well built to handle what Obey's front line is doing, which is just standing in front as long as they're close enough to their team where they can't get all in by these Fear No Evils.
You're right. I mean, it feels like Ding Dong Ditch maybe or something like that from Obey. They get what they want and they are dipping right afterward. They're not sticking around much to try and have to face the consequences of what they've chosen to do, and Radiance haven't been able to lock them down. But still, time kind of keeps marching on, right? And Obey keep taking these really, really small victories, and I do keep having this question about how they're going to turn that into a bigger one. I mean, here we are around the Fire Giant, 24 minutes into the game, and Radiance can fight into this. I don't think they need to give any extra respect to Obey than they would to any other team at this point based on the lead or anything like that. This is a very even one for them still, and they can absolutely take this fight.
Yes, this game is effectively even right now with a slight lead for Obey, but experience difference. The Aurora's caught up to inbound, as you usually see around this point in the game, because that experience buff to the lowest level character and how hard minion waves scale. Level 20s for basically everybody else. Not a huge itemization lead for anybody on Obey Alliance. This game is effectively even, but this is where Obey should be using their slight lead. This is where ward coverage is really big usually for teams that are this slightly ahead, because it lets them still finish the item that Radiance can likely also finish, but it leaves you with 200 extra gold left over for a ward and some sentries.
That's big knockup from Benji. The Fear No Evil's there as well, and Wowie now quite low has already used the beads and adapting dunks right on top of him. Benji still trying to stick to inbound but can't get the damage. They get adapting out, but what about in the backline? Weekend could use some assistance as well, and Aurora is sticking to Wolfie, so he won't be coming in to provide backup. That's a 2-for-0 now in favor of Radiance, and Wolfie still zoned out of this engagement slowly by Aurora. Benji continues to die, forces Ducky out as well. Radiance have gotten the 2-for-0, but they're a bit low. What can they get on the back of this?
I don't think that they can really pull fire with a whole lot of confidence, knowing that Ducky has TP up and is completely healthy. Pyromancer's already down. That might be about it, but that is exactly what can't happen to Obey Alliance, where they get separated in these jungle fights. Obey has been so good around these Gold Furies at staying close to one another, but not so close that we're grouping up. It's easy for them to pick their targets and also escape all the same way. That time they get a little bit split. Fear No Evil and that huge ultimate from Kukulkan combined to really split up that Obey frontline from the backline, and they grouped up a little bit too much after the fact.
The Fire Giant has been pulled now, aggro, half HP as well, and Radiance still feeling like they're favored. Tings has all his relics, Cyclone Spin still has beads as well, so they are favored to start this up. In fact, it's not even really a battle. They burned it before Obey could even make their way into the Fire Giant pit, and now they are going to get aggressive. Aurora gets right to the back line. Fear No Evil separates inbound. He's low, but not dead. In fact, Aurora is the one that ends up falling. Adapting gets the other support, though, taking down inbound. 4v4 is Radiance on the disengage.
But Wolfie's looking for a little bit more alongside Ducky. Aegis from Big Man Tings is going to be good, and Benji is still plenty healthy.
Look at the damage he still has. Wowie gets gobbled up, and Benji hasn't even transformed. Cyclone Spin takes down Wolfie, and Benji in his final Frieza state ready to keep on fighting. Weekend and Ducky got to fully get on out of here. And if I'm Radiance, I'm regrouping at this point. They can start pushing down some of these structures. They got plenty of time. 45 on Wolfie, 40 on Wowie, 15 on inbound. Radiance now in a good spot.
Just a weird decision by Obey. I mean, it looked like they could have contested fire, but they didn't really want to. Okay, we'll have Ducky and Wolfie try and steal it, but now we're caught out because inbound had to go in so deep to try and protect us. You're either giving that fire or you aren't. That felt like a middle-of-the-road call, and middle-of-the-road calls lose you games all the time.
And it might end up hurting them here. Weekend is in trouble. Adapting wants to grab the kill. Horrific from inbound keeps him alive, but that meant no one was defending the right side. Phoenix Radiance burned through that one easily, and now they're on the retreat. And I didn't want to sound like an Obey naysayer or anything, but this was my concern, that Obey only got these small incremental victories. It never really got them very far ahead. And the late game, Radiance win one or two team fights, and now they're in control.
It just wasn't enough to really be a huge lead. And they were in the game, but being completely even, it means you still have to make the game-winning plays. And really, Radiance has done a better job of that so far. Both of these compositions are pretty good at this point in the game. I still think that Radiance has a slight edge around now, 30, 35 minutes. But when the big fights were happening around 25, 23, Obey's comp was just as good. I just think that their positional advantages, the things they were doing so well on the left side of the map, kind of got lost in translation when trying to get over to that right-hand side. Inbound was a little bit too split off from the rest of the team a lot of the time, and then dashes in, pulls his carries up with him in a way, because they're stepping up to try and help him. That sets up Benji for a huge ultimate coming around that left side back harpy. Yeah. And then again, that Fire Giant fight where are we contesting or are we not? The shot calling was phenomenal through the early to mid game for Obey. I thought they were doing a lot of things really well. Clear, cohesive calls around these objectives. What are we doing? When are we burning? What are we doing after the fact? All of that was crystal clear, very clearly. But on that right-hand side, when it gets a little bit harder, when, okay, a little bit more pressure's on us, we are reacting now, that shot calling seemed to fall by the wayside a little bit and be a little bit more muddied because it looked to me like Obey couldn't make up their mind on whether or not they were contesting that fire.
Radiance still have a little less than a minute on this Fire Giant. All the tier 2 towers are down. Remember, in right, that Phoenix is entirely down, so that minion wave will threaten the Titan. Ducky is trying to keep too busy over in mid. Meanwhile, in left, the 3-man split from Radiance threaten this Phoenix, but someone's got to go back to deal with these minions. They aggress onto the Titan, and that is the window Radiance are waiting on. 30 more seconds left on FG. Inbound, goes in aggressively with the charge prey, doesn't find much. Fear No Evil pins Weaken against the wall. He ends up living too, and Ducky wants to go for the dive, but Benji's doing a dive of his own, shuts down Weaken in the back, pops the thorns, knocks up Inbound as well, and forces him to head for the hills. So far, Radiance getting everything they want off this push. Left side Phoenix is going to come down.
And Benji even lives. Aurora not quite as lucky. He ends up eating a little bit too much damage from Wowie, but still that Titan down to about half HP. I love what Radiance does there because the normal 4-1 split is really hard to win against a Robin because he has 2 forms of CC immunity, and so you can't just burn one and then all in him. He's got good mobility. He can hit you from a range with the 3 and then get in, and his auto chain lets him out trade you pretty effectively. So what they do instead is they 3-2. They leave Benji and Adapting in the mid lane, and then they all transition to a full 5-on-5 on that left-hand side. And Obey just a little bit slow on going in. Inbound gets too poked out, so then he feels like he has to get in there before we give up this Phoenix. He ends up getting really low, gets a pretty good horrific off, but gets low, and Adapting blinks into a Fear No Evil right away, and is just too late on the purification beads. He takes 98% of his health bar before he can leap away, and then that's an easy cleanup for Benji. Against the Hun Bat at this point in the game, you're going in, he's not going to look at it, he's going to Fear No Evil you. You have to use those relics preemptively. They were just a little bit too late there from Weaken.
Another strong fight from Radiance, and only 14 kills in 31 minutes. They've all been precise fights. Even from Obey in the early game, those were precise fights that they were taking. It's just that when it got to this point, they had some struggles. This Fire Giant will go down for Radiance uncontested, but it feels a bit like Obey are where Renegades were in week 1, right? Where they could play well through the early game and then struggle at the 23-minute mark. It just took them a couple of weeks of ramp maybe to get to that same spot. We'll have our chance to see as we watch more games from them. But Ducky wants to take the fight outside the Phoenix. He pays for it. Never even gets the ultimate off as the Fear No Evil locks him down.
Yeah, that's again your Yorm. I've got beads, but that ultimate takes a long time to go off. You're never gonna get a chance to at this point in the game. He gets eviscerated. Cyclone Spin finds a nice kill onto the other frontliner and Inbound.
Benji just goes right to the Titan. This game should be over here at this point as Aurora comes in to try and help him out. Meanwhile, the rest of the team's still fighting on the right side. Phoenix, they've just left Wolfie to try and defend this all by himself, and he just can't do it. The Titan ends up going down in favor of Radiance. 32 minutes was all they needed to grab game 1.
But look, that was a much better Obey Alliance than what we've seen from them so far this season. And Radiance looked like they were a little bit willing to wait it out, take it to late game. We feel confident we're going to win there. And for good reason, clearly. They looked phenomenal once those 5-on-5 started up. But I think that this is a good first step to Obey Alliance because we haven't seen them take a lot of winning steps so far this year. This is the first one for them.
You're right, man. Obey certainly did look better in this game. And closing games out is things that every team struggles with, right? And they weren't even in a position where I would say they were favored, so closing it out doesn't even necessarily feel fair. Radiance is a tough squad. Obey played well in game 1. We'll see if they can bounce back in game number 2, as I'll get it back over to Dolson and Gore on the desk.
This one's a little bit more tumultuous in the early game for Radiance, but at the end of the day, they're able to stall it out and grab a win here in game number 1. Gormizer, Obey did kind of exactly what you wanted to see them do. Make an impact on the early game. They do get first blooded, but then they take a kill lead, a 1,500 goal lead over the next few minutes. But I think then things just kind of stagnated. They get a few Furies, but never were able to push that advantage.
The best thing I could say was that they, especially compared to yesterday, they collected themselves, right? There was better team play, there was better objective play, they have good dances around the first few Furies, they get the first few Furies. It really does come down to that one fight, like right prior to the Fire Giant, where Obey lose just barely, but they get pushed out, pushed back into base, and while immediately afterward Radiance couldn't get Fire Giant, they were able to back, respawn, run up, get fire, and win another fight right after. It was about 26 minutes into the game. And that is very similar to what we saw out of Obey against Sanguine, right? 20 to 25 minutes of keeping pace and keeping them locked down. And then unfortunately at the very end getting forced into some scenarios that you're not able to make a good decision, right? It's a bad decision on one side, bad decision on the other. And that's where Radiance really forced them out of their comfort zone. They were just able to force them into engagements that, I mean, you don't want to take them if you're Obey, but if you don't take them, you're going to lose even harder. So you have to commit to it. And unfortunately, that's where Radiance and Sanguine a couple weeks ago were playing strong against them. And of course, when you jump in and get really solid ults, or when you have this amount of CC that you can lock down, you're trading maybe support for 2 or support for no one on their side. Radiance were doing wonderfully at making sure everyone got out and kind of peeling themselves away.
I think this is kind of a two-pronged takeaway here, in my opinion. I think great on Radiance to be able to extend this game out, keep that gold lead and XP lead as small as it was. I mean, there was a point in the game, didn't have the specific numbers, but Obey was in the lead gold-wise, but there were still a couple of members on Radiance. I think it was Hunter Roll in the jungle as well, most notably, that had XP leads. So I think that's good from Radiance. But a similar vibe to I think what you pointed out to Renegades, where despite Obey losing, they at least look better. I think that's the takeaway here for Obey. You looked better, a little bit more clean here. Now you look towards game 2, Gore. If you're Obey, remember there was a pretty heavy jungle priority in the Radiance bans. Is there anything that you look towards picks and bans that you didn't like from Obey, or Radiance for that matter, that maybe you look to change here for game 2?
I don't know, and this is something that's going to be difficult for Obey because their bans specifically were absolutely fine. It realistically came down to the fact that Hunbat's getting through has been a big problem for a lot of these teams. His ult has been very potent for years. I mean, you go back in time, he had crit, but now he just hits you really hard. Either way, he's a very potent jungler. But, I mean, what are you going to give up to ban that out, right? The Thor, the Yemoja, Thor maybe being a little more potent than we've seen out of the Hunbats. Yemoja definitely causing more trouble than it's worth. Although if you look at the United Renegade set, I think she was just forgotten both games. So maybe you could afford at this point to drop the Yemoja, but you don't know if it's worthwhile yet, right? Like her nerfs, especially coming into this last bonus update, have gutted her scaling, so she doesn't do as much damage, but the healing's still there, the shielding's still there, and the stun is still there. It's just not going to be maybe as potent. And it's, do you want to roll those dice? Do you want to play that game? And I think I like what Obey do, and they just say no.
Absolutely. I think, strictly speaking, Obey have banned out 3 very powerful gods, especially given the players on Radiance. They stick with that Jormungandr first pick overall, though, and I think Ducky, again, looked fine on the Jorm, and I think kept him alive a few times, even got a kill there in game number 1. But do you think that's maybe an overextension with so much power still on the board to go right back over to that Jormungandr?
Yeah, it's the same question I think we had, well, not even question, just statement about certain first picks where it's just like, is it going to be good enough to win you the game? And you did it last game, and it was potent, it was powerful, but it didn't win you the game. Do you go back to it first pick? I'm inclined to say no. It does depend on the performance this game. Maybe that was the most comfort pick. Maybe it's something they're trying to strip away from Radiance. It's that high priority for them, but I just don't know if the Jormungandr is warranting enough for me to say, yes, you have to pull that in to be first pick. Whereas Uller and Merlin played exceptionally fine, right, when they came into it. So they did enough damage. They have enough control. I think Radiance going back to pretty much the same picks is exactly what they should be doing.
I agree. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. We're going to get a mirror matchup, really, Hunter-wise. Radiance get the Uller again. Huyi over to Obey Raijin one more time. Seeing Raijin kind of rise to prominence here exactly at a 50% pick ban rate and exactly at a 50% win rate. But Core, there, I mean, the Hoonbats right back over to Radiance for adapting. It's just so scary.
It's the qualm that comes through, and this is honestly nothing Obey can do about it, right? You are first pick. You ban 3 really powerful gods. The best you could do is first pick one of these gods away from Radiance, maybe, to try and pull that into your favor. Of course, then maybe you give them the Yorm, and there's something to be worried about there. But my eyes are coming on the fact that Uller, Merlin, Hunbats are all incredibly potent and powerful. We saw what they were able to do last game. I expect them to do something very similar this game, maybe even at an escalated rate, just because now they're comfortable on it and they kind of know what to expect out of Obey, so they can predict that first 20 minutes a little better. They can maybe counterplay it a little better. The problem with making a kind of a run back at the first game is that unless you can drastically change the style that you're playing these gods, you've now kind of shown your hand, and they should know how to counter it.
Well, the first large difference from Game 1 is now this Hercules being locked in, but Radiance, yet again, they're going to lock in Hoonbats. Serket was already banned out, Daji as well, Awilish also gone. So again, you're gonna force, and then Thor, of course, banned out. So you're going to force Weekend to move to something less conventional. It was the Raven in game number 1. I am curious to see maybe where we go. Susano has been a popular pick here. But I like the way Radiance have looked at this. If you're going to give us the Hoonbats, we'll just take away 2 more of those junglers and force Weekend down the tier list a little bit.
And I'm a big fan. If you roll back to something Finch said at the very beginning of the game, it was the fact that Odin had kind of gotten glanced over. And I think Hercules is going to be in that very similar vein. He was kind of glanced over, but with an Uller beside him, it's going to be very deadly. Kumba helps bring some of that potency back to Obey, but they lock in the set. It's, again, a different look, a different assassin to pull forward, and I think it can work out well here. I'm not sure if I can go in and say, yes, Obey have the win here, but they're trying something different, and that might be enough.
Have to give them props for bringing something new to the table. Can they bring a win to the table? We'll have to go into Game 2 to find out.
Well, that would also be something new if Obey were able to find that W here up against Radiance. They've had some struggles here at the start of the year, but as Aggro was talking about last time, it is still me and him here, Caston, they looked better in Game 1 than we've seen them look yet. And it might be even too much to ask, based on what we've seen, for them to just suddenly overcome Radiance now. We just want to see them build on some of those good habits I think they built in that first game, and maybe with Weekend on this set who has some hyper carry potential, maybe that can be it.
But this is the type of composition that concerns me for Obey, is that they've struggled a lot in early games. In last game, they pick Weekend something that fights better early on, that puts them in a good spot, unlike Wowie, by the way, who's in a horrible spot after Aurora just exerts his will on Hercules, as he always does.
He doesn't miss his 2. It's crazy.
It's auto-locked, dude. This guy hacks, on God. But the set is not an early game character. And so I'm just always concerned when this is the direction, like, okay, we're just going to get to late and then we're going to win. I would have gone the other way, where I think that Obey didn't need more late game in order to win Game 1. They needed more early game. They had the early game. They just needed to bump that lead up more. It's just a different style. It can work. Maybe they feel like, okay, we understand how to play the early game against Radiance now. We can play it without as much early game presence and just do it because we understand how to do it better. That's certainly a possibility. It's just not the direction that I think that I was expecting in picks and bans.
I think that the way that I would describe it is like that loss they took in Game 1, that's the kind of loss that can be easily folded into a successful season, right? Where you get to 30 minutes, you lose a team fight, and it just doesn't quite go your way. That's fine. Yep. What we've been seeing from them in the other weeks has been just non-competitive, right? They've been getting blown out of the water before they even get there. And that's why skewing more late doesn't make so much sense. If they're trying to move on from those types of losses that they can't have, you would think it would be more like what we saw in that first game, but a bit more around setting themselves up to have a better late game. So it is a bit sort of confusing the direction that they're moving here with it. But I think that if they can maintain that parity, right, do some of those same things, but maybe just make sure they get to that late game with some parity, then they'll be in a good spot. Kumba is excellent setup, and Set will absolutely thrive in all that chaos.
Without a doubt. And it's really, really good dive potential onto this Uller. I mean, Set just does so much damage when left unchecked. But Benji is going to be there on this Athena to help with that dive. I mean, giving your carry damage mitigation is huge, and then a big burst of damage when she lands. I do think it's worth noting, though, that Radiance's composition, I mean, that game turned around because Benji found a couple of really big ultimates in these team fights. This comp doesn't 5v5 as well as the last comp for Radiance. Radiance's composition scraps much better than it did in game 1. I think that they were very cognizant of the fact that they did not have a great early game and want to remedy that with this Hercules and Athena picks. Athena affects the map a whole lot earlier. I think that Radiance really understands that Ducky made a huge impact of that early gold rotation over towards Gold Fury in game number 1. This is a composition that's going to set themselves up to be in a better spot around 25 minutes, but might not be quite as well-rounded come that 35, 40-minute mark, because that global ultimate from Athena gets a lot less valuable whenever you're already standing in a 5-on-5 situation.
Right, it's not necessarily a team fighting ultimate so much as perhaps like an initiator or even a disengage tool at times. But I do think that maybe as long as Aurora and Benji can kind of swap the roles they had from last time, this is still really tough to fight. I mean, where do I use my beads up against this composition from Radiance? Is it from the Axe Stun or the Hercules pull or Fear No Evil or the many taunts Benji will be throwing out too? I think that's a pretty good question that Obey are going to have to be struggling to answer, especially because not everyone on this squad for Obey has that CC immunity in kit. These beads are really going to be important.
It's going to be hard to hold on to them because you're dead to anything you just said. All of them, they kill you. None of them are poke CCs, you know? You're getting all in off of basically all of those. So Obey, one of the ways to handle these compositions that put a lot of pressure on your purification beads is to just kind of run it down and just never let the enemy team set up. And these beads burning compositions are really good when one person can go in and get your beads, and then in the laning phase, maybe a minute later, someone shows up to punish you for it, or in a team fighting phase, you have to wait for your beads to go off and wait for them to fall off, and then they CC you. One of the ways to counteract that is to be able to just run at them and never give them a chance to set up these set plays, especially in the laning phase, where you can just play so aggressively that they don't get a chance to set their feet and really punish you for not having beads because you're the one punishing them for trying to go with this more elaborate cerebral play.
I do wonder, to talk a bit about the solo lane, if we're going to see more attention over there. I think one extra thing this Athena does, it does break up that Jade Emperor's Crown start we talked about last game that's so good against the physical jungler, physical solo. Instead, Ducky's going with this Stone of Binding start, which is still strong, and it gives him some of those all protections that he's going to need. But I think that Adapting's ganks over here on the Ducky might be a bit more potent than they would have been last time when they felt like maybe they would struggle to fight on this right side of the map.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, Stone of Binding's a core item on Yorm because it's just so easy to proc and gives you everything you want, but you don't necessarily want it this early.
Well, Benji is going to be getting involved this early, and it couldn't have been better time. They need help with the gank, but two members end up going down. One on the side of Obey, one on the side of Radiance. Inbound is inside the Sleepy Passive, and WoWie can't stick around. The Fear No Evil from Adapting is here as well. So even though Aurora goes down, it's a 3-for-1 in favor of Radiance to start this game off.
Perfect use of that Athena ult, because look at the right side of the map. There is nothing up for Ducky to take. What's he going to do? Auto the tower a little bit? Sweet. I'll see you there, King. No worries here. Benji gets over there, gets 3 assists, a huge burst of gold. Aurora has a phenomenal ultimate. Shocker that Aurora is really good at landing those Hercules ultimates in the right spot. He double bounces everybody in that moment. Weekend is really good at finding these extended engagements, right? He wants to get a lot of healing off of Kingslayer at this point in the game. No chance when he gets insta-killed like that. That was beautiful by Radiance.
And those are the kind of fights I think that you were talking about that Radiance wants to take in terms of they want these kind of scrappier ones. And here where they can get like the numbers advantage by having Benji rotate over sort of favors them too. But instead of a big sort of set 5-on-5 where you have to find a way to get in there with your initiation, instead they just all of a sudden have swarmed Obey on this left-hand side. They've overwhelmed them in the early game and got a tremendous advantage. I mean, 2 of those kills go into Cyclone Spin on this Uller, and we know what he can do with a lead. This is a pretty scary start for Obey, though it's not entirely doom and gloom. I don't want to make it sound like they've been blown out of the water already, but that is a scary way for things to begin.
The door is open to blow out City, though, right? I mean, now you've got Wowie with no beads. You've got Aurora with a lead. He's already got the Talaria boots there. He's working towards either Thebes or probably going to be a Shield of Regrowth, knowing the way that Aurora likes to build the Hercules with just a ton of movement speed. Wowie has to be very, very careful for these next 45 seconds because he is going to be pressured by Cyclone Spin, or Radiance is just going to look to pull a Gold Fury or something to force Obey into a bad spot. But this is the danger zone where you can fall behind pretty quickly. Dying once, usually not a huge deal. It's dying, going back to lane, and then dying again that sets you back really, really far.
And Radiance, exactly the kind of team that could potentially punish him for it. Aurora was willing to commit the boulder a minute ago for the red buff, but it might be more worthwhile to mention that 3 members of Radiance rotating over to right. They elect not to commit, though. Ducky should be okay for now. They'll head back towards mid. But Aurora, this is how he plays, and he plays Hercules. I like to say he walks the tightrope perhaps more than anyone else on these aggressive support picks. And it feels like he trusts his instinct. He goes for these sort of riskier plays that are high return if he's able to execute them.
And it usually does execute, which is why he's been so successful. Weekend gets plucked, but a good mez by inbound prevents that push back.
And Wolfie wants to keep this going because Ducky's rotating in. Defender of Olympus mitigated almost enough, but not enough. Ducky shuts Aurora down, but Fear No Evil is here for the cleanup again. Bring the mops out as Adapting comes in to try and clean up some kills. He only gets 1 as they shut down Weekend and Trade, but Cyclone Spin lurking around the bottom. Award's there. He knows that the game is up, and instead he just retreats.
And Aurora happy with that trade, I'm sure. Support for jungler, always worth it at this level. But that's another great rotation by Ducky that really Benji's only able to match because he's playing a global ultimate god. Ducky uses that pressure that he's gotten. That early ult to the left-hand side, I highlighted how there was nothing up for Ducky to take, but it's given him, he still gets an extra wave. He still gets to push a wave under tower that Benji loses, and he's leveraged a little bit of that extra lead into a great spot.
Aurora's so good at Hercules, getting Wolfie pulled all the way back and forcing out his beads yet again. I mean, but this guy's just one of the best that we have out there right now. But that was a good play from Obey, and I love sort of the synergy that they're playing around, especially around this Jormungandr, because they first picked it aggro instead of a lot of that good stuff that was still up. You heard Gord talking about how it can feel bad to ban away the Uller or the Unbot sometimes, or the Merlin, when there's so many good things you have to ban. Well, instead, they're using that first pick slot to make sure they keep putting Ducky on this Yorm. And if he's going to make rotations like we keep seeing from here in this set, then I think I'm on board.
He's looked really good so far on this pick for sure. I think that it's interesting that Obey's willing to take first pick right now, because I feel like first pick's in a little bit of a disadvantage in a meta like this, and that's where there's no clear number 1 best god that you can really mess around with picks and bans in order to get.
Well, the Sacred Monkey from Adapting could admit that it can blink him. I think it's weighted out a bit by Wowie, and Adapting doesn't want to commit underneath the tier 2 that far at this point. So good, well played by Wowie to get him out of there. He doesn't have beads. I think that's why Adapting's over here. He knows he's a sitting duck, but couldn't capitalize there. They should be able to get this tier 1, and Aurora might even be able to get a bit more. The tower comes down. Good mez from inbound, though, cuts out the aggression.
That was really, really smart by Wowie, because knowing that Adapting can't really teleport to me when I'm hovering in midair in the dive bomb like that, and even if he does, it's right underneath me and won't be able to close the gap towards where I'm jumping to. And Sacred Monkey does not have a long teleport window, so Wowie waits it out and saves his own life. Doesn't save his tier 1 tower or the Gold Fury, but those things were going down regardless with the way that Radiance was able to move Obey around the map and really, again, put pressure on the characters that don't have purification beads.
Weekend trying to contest with Benji, or maybe the other way around, Benji contesting Weekend in his own jungle. And those charts just now, I think, showed us the difference between the game 1 that Obey had when they were in control with not a lot of kills, and then this game 2 where Radiance are in control with a relatively low kill amount. I mean, they're 2,300 gold, 4,700 experience, as opposed to maybe 1,000 gold and an actual experience deficit that Obey had in game 1. They played that early game well, but this is what these top-end teams do with their early game leads. They really do turn it into a lead where you might not ever get back into it.
And it's because of the way that Radiance is grouped. That's the big difference. When you look at the way both these teams have played in games where they feel like they have the momentum and can get a lead, Obey split the map a little bit more. They spread out to farm, and then they'd group up for objective time, right? They'd get together right around the time where Gold Fury is about to spawn. Radiance splits up when there's buffs to get on their side, and then immediately coalesces on wherever they can put the most pressure. Right now, it's knowing that Wowie doesn't have beads, so where's adapting? On tower line. If there's enough of a rotation over from Obey because of good ward coverage by Radiance, they know they don't look for it. Otherwise, they look for things in mid.
Well, now there's another carry without beads. It's Wolfie as those get forced out by Aurora. Benji dashing for the taunt, and Weekend loses his beads. The boulder nearly gets the job done by itself, but it does open up the door for this tier 1. Ducky's going to rotate in the back to try and disrupt this, but immediately gets controlled. Might even have to channel the ultimate if he's not careful, as he gets taunted back in for the overhand smash. But Ducky, the wiser man here, recognizes he's not in that much trouble and defends the tier 1.
But again, it's just grouping up from Radiance. They're forcing Obey to be in the right spots. Now Ducky has to use the ultimate just to buy some time for Wowie to get over to this fight. And it's just Radiance understands, each of these players understands their role down to a very, very strong level. Look at the relic choice by Benji in this game, in the build by Benji. It's CDR focused. He knows what his job is. Use that ultimate to get to whatever fight we need. Let's get Shell, because we know we have enough initiation with the Hercules from Aurora and with adapting and even Cyclone Spin's Axe that we don't need Benji to be a tertiary initiator. He's there as the peel machine. So he's going to ult whoever Weekend's ulting, land, and then shell them. Weekend has a tough time really going on anybody in this game. I mean, he's already behind. He's down 2 levels, so that's not going to make it any easier. But Radiance last picked this Athena. It really made Weekend's job nearly impossible if he were even, let alone when he's already behind.
And I do think that was smart from them in the picks and bans. We already talked about how the Athena might have been really good to affect Ducky, but what it does to kind of mitigate Weekend as well is really strong. So I like that they kind of waited on that last solo pick from them in the picks and bans. They 10th pick this Athena, and they do a good job sort of countering a lot of what Obey were looking for. And this is another reason why Radiance are so scary. These players so flexible in terms of what they pick, and they're thinking so far ahead when they pick it and how they're building from minute 1, 2. It just makes it hard to beat them even when you're even, like we saw in game 1, much less when you're behind, like we're seeing here in game 2. And Inbound could potentially get caught out. Aurora is lurking through the jungle. He dashes away, though, Inbound does, and is still safe, but that has not slowed down this aggression.
And it's been really, really tough to get onto any of Radiance's backliners basically all year so far here in Season 7. But Cyclone might have finally been put into a bad spot. He still has Aegis. I don't think Ducky can really chase this one out. In fact, it's Obey again, backing up because the numbers from Radiance are here.
And Ducky agrees, not really going to be able to chase Cyclone Spin in that spot. I thought you might have cast or cursed him, but not quite strong enough. Maybe you haven't stretched yet. I'm not so sure, but I'm
Dude,
sure
my
you get
curse
it back
has
up
been
and revving.
strong this year, man. I don't
It
know.
has
It's been real strong, but it seems like it's not strong enough to kill these backliners for Radiance. Big Man Tings, coming into today, only 2 deaths so far this year. That's insane. Cyclone Spin, only 5. That's 7 deaths for the backliners of Radiance through their first 2 games of the season. 2 sets, that's 4 games. They've died 7 times total combined in the backline. You're going to win a lot of games when you're able to stay that safe. And that's not just a testament to them, but also the front line of Radiance.
Inbound is in a really bad spot. That Mez lasts forever, but overhand smash will proc the passive. Can anyone get in range to actually put the necessary audios in? Benji makes sure by stepping forward, and Inbound surely should die. No, he makes it back up, gets caught in the Fear No Evil, but he's okay. Wolfie with the Taiko drums is here for peel. Even Ducky's on the way. This might be a decent fight for Obey if they can find the re-engage, but that's a great pull from Aurora. How does he always manage to find the pushes? Big Man Tings gets the kill, and Weekend falls yet again. They turn a disaster into a chance to push.
But man, that just can't happen in that situation against Aurora's Hercules. Relics were up there for adapting. He didn't beads until after he was in the middle of the entire enemy team. You can't get picked up, and then you definitely can't get hit by that driving strike in that situation. It's been a couple times where he's been hit by that, and Inbound has saved his life with a good mez to stop that driving strike guaranteed follow-up. But Inbound was out of that fight. That was just poor relic usage right there, and there's no chance you're living if you wait that long.
It really ends up hurting Weekend, and this Primal Fury should go down for Radiance. I don't want to say free. They earned it in the middle lane just now, but it will be uncontested. And this is another thing that I think that has hurt Obey there a little bit. I think what happened, and obviously I cannot know, but think of the mentality shift. That was a good defense underneath the tier 1 to where you had an opportunity to start pushing. And I think it's so hard to make sure that in that moment when you're trying to be aggressive, to still have the defensive mindset, to make sure that you're respecting their ability to turn around on you and find the burn. Maybe Weekend thought he could get away without using the beads there because they were the ones on offense for a moment, and instead he should have been mindful of the fact that they had plenty of burn potential still.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Adapting's ultimate really went to waste there, thinking that it could bring Inbound back towards this team, but it pushed him the wrong way. It doesn't do enough damage to kill him either. But this is just what Aurora does to you, man. He puts you in a spot where you're not winning.
Wolfie has decided to go aggressive. He used the Thunder Crash in place, but Tings just kills him then instead. The taunt keeps Inbound stuck in a spot he does not want to be, and we know he doesn't have the Sleepy Time passive this time to try and help him out. But Cyclone Spin's alone in the back. Finally, the carries are isolated, but he leaps away. They don't have the damage. Somehow, Cyclone Spin skirts death yet again, and now Ducky is stuck with no ultimate in a blizzard, and the cold is too much. It's a double kill for Benji on the Athena, and now they want the last couple of members. See if they can clean up. Wowie, the leap over the wall is enough for Adapting to get a kill as well.
And welcome to the factory, everybody. Thank you for taking the tour for the Obey conveyor belt. Right over here, you see us going in one by one to get slaughtered by Radiance as they please. I don't know if someone told Wolfie to go in that moment, or if he thought that he wasn't going to be able to, but he had backup coming. He could have dashed towards Ducky and at least pulled Radiance into a bad spot should they want to continue that fight. But dashing on top of Big Man Tings when you know the Athena ult is still up, a series of bad decisions by Obey that pull one member after the other down the conveyor belt and down into the waiting jaws of the shark that is Obey Alliance, or of Radiance rather. Now Radiance with a Fire Giant, all 5 members. The one bright spot here for Obey is they did get Big Man Tings' relics, both of them. So now you got to look and see, okay, if we can try and find a way to dive Tings before he gets those relics up, maybe we can stop this siege. Don't love those odds, but at least it's a window.
Well, there's still a lot of towers for Radiance to go grab and add onto this gold lead, and they've got plenty of time to push with this Fire Giant as well. But Obey Alliance now, as you said, do now have a chance to try and maybe punish Tings. And not just maybe punish Tings, but how do you like their whole base siege as a squad? Bendy's in a little bit of trouble over here and right, but should be able to get away. But how do you like the way that Obey's draft just does on defense in general?
Raijin, very good on the defensive. I like him quite a bit. He's got good poke damage, can all in very well from a very, very safe distance. But I think Set has trouble finding his way into the backline a lot of the time. Hou-Yi ultimate is great, but it's one-time use, so you got to make sure you use it at the right time, and teams are pretty good at just baiting that ult and then going in on the next wave anyways. Yorm can be difficult to siege against as well, so it's not bad.
Inbound initiating has used the blink and the mez, but Fear No Evil locks Weekend in. He gets a bit baited in that engagement. He's the one that pays for it. They do get the kill into Tings, though. Remember, they knew he didn't have the relic, so they shut him down. The taunt does catch Inbound, but they don't have the follow-up damage. The 4-on-4. Mid lane are missing from one, jungle from the other, but Wolfie here to play. Shuts down Aurora, and Obey Alliance push Radiance back out of their house.
But Cyclone Spin's still healthy enough, decides it won't be enough to keep this Phoenix siege going. That was a great find by Inbound. Really greedy pathing from Obey, especially with Tings still not having any relics at that point. But Inbound, after finding a perfect blink 3-man mez, then auto-attacks Big Man Tings to wake him up. He's still slowed at that point, but I assume Inbound thought he had his ultimate. It wasn't up at the time, but he auto-attacked Tings. That nearly threw that whole engagement. Luckily enough, Weekend's able to get into the back line, gets insta-killed, but at least pulls enough attention, gets Big Man Tings down. with some help, but could have been even better.
This is a chance for the punish on the Wowie, who went aggressive in left lane. Adapting doesn't have the Fear No Evil yet. Aegis buys Wowie some time. Adapting juking around, hoping he'll find some CDs in order to reposition. They've bit off more than they can chew on this left-hand side, but Adapting has weaved his way back out of there, and now Obey might be a bit positionally committed to a fight that they don't want. Aurora continuing to get aggressive, so is Benji right here next to him, but the entirety of Obey is here. This is a risky proposition, but Aurora picks Weaken out of all those people that were there and plucks him back. That's the perfect target. And now he's re-engaging. Driving Strike and the Boulder. Can't find any of it, but Aurora gets too greedy and Wowie cuts him down.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin sometimes with the Hercules, is that you feel like you're making all these plays and then you feel yourself a little bit too much, but it doesn't hurt Radiance too much at this point. I don't think they were going to be ready to siege Phoenixes. I actually wonder if it's best to not clear that Oni Fury right now and almost wait until Fire is about to come up, because right now is where Oni doesn't matter too much. It's pretty easy for Obey to split the map. They've still got a minute until Fire Giant spawns. This doesn't put a whole lot of pressure on any Phoenix, and it's not enough time for Radiance to use the remainder of this Fire Giant and try and find kills either. So it takes it off the map and makes sure Obey Alliance can't do it. But I think that there may be some argument to just backing, leaving one or two people there, and then waiting until about now to start doing that Oni Fury and then transitioning right on over to that Fire.
Well, I doubt Obey feel great about coming out to defend this Fire anyway, so we have a chance to talk a bit about these relics, because Inbound has picked up the Sunder, and I'm not sure if I'm late to notice this or if he just hit 12 late in this game, but either way, that's the option that he's gone with for that second relic, and I gotta think this is meant to try and blow up some of this front line from Radiance and punish this initiation. Where do you see them using this?
This has got to be on Benji or Aurora every single time. Did you see Benji eat every cooldown from Obey Alliance and walk away half health? I mean, it's obscene how tanky this guy is at this point, because there's really just not enough pen on the other side. I mean, you've only got 20% there for Wolfie. Soul Reaver being done is going to help, but it's not enough to be the huge difference maker in killing a very, very tanky Athena. A crit build for Wowie means that it's going to be pretty hard for him to chew through this Athena very quickly. Sunder's going to make it a lot easier to kill either Athena or that Hercules.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind punishing Aurora of his greedy initiations. He has been looking for the world here so far and largely getting it, only finally shut down at that last engage without getting much. But he's basically the only one that's died. Tings finally took a spill in that last skirmish too, as Radiants are grouped up and right with the Fire Giant around their waist for yet another siege. Relics available not yet on the Aegis for Wowie. 5 seconds and he'll be good to go. But those are the beads forced out from Ducky near the front of the Phoenix.
That's the easy initiation now. It's a little bit better for Ducky to lose beads than anybody else, because he at least can't get Herc plucked like everybody else on his team can.
Well, Ducky goes into the ultimate. Maybe he thought there was a heavier commitment than it actually was from Radiance. Either way, that's his ultimate down. He's a sitting duck for this Fear No Evil. They gobble him up quite easily. Aurora gets the credit. Weaken in some trouble too, but Benji doesn't have the damage to finish him off. In fact, Wowie gets the punish. It's a 1-for-1, and Obey have got to find a way to reset and stay sturdy. But Wowie gets hit by an axe. He has to use the beads. He's now much more vulnerable and has to be careful. He's trying to stick around and defend this right side Phoenix, but it's getting shredded by Cyclone Spin. Thunder Crash aggressively from Wolfie is just barely not enough damage.
Wow, that was close. Cyclone holds on to all the relics. An alpha male move from him to not use anything in that moment. Inbound still wants to keep this going because they know just one auto attack is going to be enough for Radiance to get this Phoenix. And Benji's coming up soon.
They kind of have to fight outside of it is their thought, but Inbound can't afford to step forward and get caught by the ranged CC. Tings gets the kill credit, and at this point, Cyclone Spin's almost back up to full. With 4 members, they can re-seize this right side Phoenix, and I don't even think Obey could defend it. It's going to fall before they even get there. It's dropped down already.
Wow.
We could try to go to the back line, but he just gets manhandled. Tings gets another kill to improve to 4-1 and 6.
Aurora, normally about to pluck the enemy front line or someone in front of him, hears we can go in on the back and immediately removes him from said situation. Just beautiful play by him yet again, and now this is where the Athena ultimate, not great in those standing 5-on-5s, phenomenal that Benji's right back and setting up Ducky for another death.
Yeah, Ducky did almost nothing in these two team fights between those two deaths. Fear No Evil catches nothing as Wowie is able to evade it in time, but it does end up catching them a Phoenix. They grab the one in mid. They're even considering rotating over to left. They still got a minute and a half on this Fire Giant to work with. Aurora has the FG, so he'll be able to sustain up, plus he's Hercules. But it looks like that's enough. They've gotten those two Phoenixes. They'll strip the jungle from Obey and instead head back to base.
They've got so much gold. I mean, almost 4K for Aurora. So he's really itching to spend all that extra money, I'm sure, at this point. I mean, Obey really, Ducky made one of his first big mistakes so far today, and that's stepping up in the first place, getting taunted, losing the beads, and the next time Benji taunts, he just dashes and stares at Ducky because Ducky knows that he has to use that CC immunity, goes in with the second shot. That was a big mistake because it means that he can only go so far and sets himself up for an easy Fear No Evil. That siege was made a lot harder for Obey because Ducky just made a couple bad decisions.
Yeah, he really, I don't think, contributed to anything in it. And then Obey had to fight basically 4v5 on the backside without him. The struggles continue as you go down from solo to jungle. Weaken only got about 8,000 damage so far on this set. There's not been a lot of space for him to try and find those prolonged engages because of Benji's great itemization and play. It's been difficult. It's now inbound taunted at the front, brought down well below half, down below a quarter. That means Aurora can start to go aggressive. Wolfie has to respond with the ultimate just so he doesn't get plucked, and Radiance can still re-siege.
And Wolfie holds on to the beads, but now without that ultimate, it's going to be harder to defend as adapting right into that back line. Look at all this space that Radiance has to work with.
Inbound in some trouble. He's now been brought down quite low, and Cyclone Spin gets the kill. Wowie in some trouble as well. The boulder follows him and flattens him down quite nicely. They'll take the Phoenix to the left-hand side as well, and Radiance with 5 members, red buff on 2. They're looking to go for the end. Look how low the Titan is aggro. They'll get Ducky and take care of him first. The Titan comes down as well, and Radiance with the Swift 2-0 take care of Obey.
Wow, who would have guessed that Aurora was really good at Hercules? He should play that character more, man. We never see it from him this year. I mean, he's going to play that well out of nowhere on this god. He should pick it all the time. This front line for Radiance just played so well this game. I love the way that Benji and Aurora were playing. It creates so much space. And like I said, coming into this set with only 7 deaths across both backliners, that's across 4 games, it doesn't happen with your front line playing poorly. That's a huge boon. It's like a running back having great stats in football. Yes, they need to have individual talent, but you have to have the offensive line in front of you. And right now, the front line for Radiance might just be one of the best in the league. Benji and Aurora are both playing lights out.
You're always waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to these super teams. But right now with Radiance, I don't know, man. It's looking like they might just be the real deal. A Swift 2-0 takes care of Obey. I'll get it back over to Dolson and Gore to break it down further.
Much appreciated to Finch and Aggro, and great job on the call. And Gormizer, I agree with Finch. Coming into this season, the question around Radiance was never about the talent. It would be about how can these guys mesh together. Yeah. And the answer immediately is great. I mean, I think at this point, them, Sanguine, both undefeated, but Radiance might just be the top team in this league, inarguably.
And I think they not only deserve that top spot, but it goes back to very much what Aggro was saying at the end there. Having Benji and Aurora as your front line makes it, I would argue, so much easier to be adapting in Cyclone Spin and Big Man things in these engagements because you have so much room created for you. There's so much control coming from it. Like, they play so well to set up the rest of their team that it makes Radiance a different beast to tackle. And this game was a perfect example of it, right? You have game 1, where for 25 minutes, Obey is just neck and neck and causing trouble for Radiance, maintaining a small lead, but a lead nonetheless over them, making them, lose these Furies, fights, and moments like that. And then you get into game number 2, and Radiance knew what to expect, and they played to that. They recognized, okay, this is what we need to do to alter our playstyle and our draft in order to make sure that none of that happens again. None of that control exists. And there was maybe a few minutes at the very beginning of the game where it was a tug of war, and then slowly but surely it just started winning on the side of Radiance. And they just slowly scooped that up. They rode the curve off into the sky that they needed to, right? They got everything they wanted. And there were some good defenses, some good holds from Obey but it was always a play from behind scenario, never something where they could take on Radiance and feel truly confident.
It was maybe what we wanted to see out of Radiance in Game 1. Carve out a small lead and really grow it into a resounding one. 28 minutes is the length of this one. 2-0s across the board, Week 1 and Week 2. Here are your past 3 days of SPL action. Radiance remain undefeated. Sanguine do the same as well. Only Obey still searching for that first win as Renegades were able to beat E United up here this morning. You'll see the standings have shifted maybe a little bit as a result, but nothing will change for these previous 2 teams with Radiant still on top. Obey Alliance still searching for win number 1. Still small data pools here, Gormizer. And I think the surprise maybe of the SPL up to this point, not so much Radiance, but maybe Sanguine being up there undefeated. Only been 2 games, still some big matchups against very strong teams. But I think Sanguine has to be the surprise so far in how well they've come out swinging.
And I was actually in chat prior to SPL talking about this one. And it's one of those things, when you look at a lot of these other teams, they've been on the top. Some of these guys have won world champions and championships, right? What does Sanguine have that others don't? Because again, in a vacuum, then maybe you look at them mechanically, and there's going to be some players in the SPL that are better, some that are worse, right? But when you put those 5 guys together right now, what they have is hunger. It's the same thing I had mentioned kind of going into the Renegade set. It's the same way I feel about them right now. They have a hunger that is for more. I mean, It goes back to a team way, way, way back when, hungry for more. But it's that concept of you aren't being you're not setting yourself back, right? You're not holding yourself back. You want to be number 1. You want to climb as much as you can. You're not taking a loss and being like, nothing we could do about it. You're doing whatever you can to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, Gore, Sanguine will be tested once again. I guess technically this week, 5 days from now, we're going to see, or 6 days from now, I don't know. All my days are messed up, Gore. I don't know what day it is anymore. Sanguine rival. They will be playing on Friday. 5 p.m. on Friday, Sanguine will be going up against Team Rival defending that undefeated status, but Pittsburgh Knight Space Station Gaming will be starting off that Friday broadcast at 3 p.m. What jumps out to you there, Gore? It's hard to identify maybe one specific matchup you like because there's so many good ones, but which one are you maybe most excited about as far as the entire weekend goes?
Man, most excited is very difficult to break down because I think both Sanguine sets are going to be fun. The E United Obey should be an interesting one. But honestly, I think SSG versus Radiance might be the one that stands out the most to me, just because right now those are the teams. Radiance proving themselves to be on top. SSG kind of expected to be up towards the top. That's going to be kind of a brawl that you could expect to maybe be persistent as like top 3 SPL. That one's going to be a big determining factor for both of those teams.
And Gormizer, Sunday at 3 p.m., the opening game on Sunday, Pittsburgh Knights up against Rival. It'll be the first time these 2 rosters, not necessarily organizations, 2 rosters have played one another since the World Championships. Remember Cubo Fred over with the Knights now, Sam now over on Rival. So it's a similar look at an old matchup that we saw a few months ago on the world stage. So I think that one is going to be a lot of fun to look for.
I genuinely think, especially at the level these teams are playing at right now, the reason it's so difficult to choose a best match of the week or anything like that is just because everyone seems to be able to take on anyone. Obey, even in that last set, looked like they could control some of that against Radiance. You give them another week or two, and all of a sudden they're winning against your Space Station Gamings, and they're doing what Renegades did this week, right? So I don't think there's anyone who can be counted out just yet. Of course, it is week 2, so that makes sense. But the fact that everything is so close means that you have to pay attention every week to make sure these things go well.
Yeah, Gore, I couldn't tell you how any of the games next week or beyond are going to go. It's been a lot of fun, though. 3 days of SPL action, 6 total sets, and Radiance and Sanguine still stand on top undefeated. It's been a lot of fun. Make sure to tune in this upcoming Friday, April 17th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time for the Knights SSG. That'll kick off week 3 of the SPL. But on behalf of myself, Gormizer, everyone back in production, thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday.